This is a very recording in progress. Perfect. It's all about working with buyers, and it's more meat and potatoes and like in-depth process. So have you taken Ignite yet? Have you taken this version of Ignite? Yes. So this is deeper dive into that, which is why it's so long. So I like to kind of get an idea of who's in the room to make sure I'm teaching to the appropriate level. So who has been in real estate less than 6 months? Okay, couple brand new. A year, 2 years, 3 years. Looks like right at four. Okay. Anyone 5 or above? Okay. And then closings, those who are brand new, have you closed anything yet? Nothing yet? Okay. And then those who have been here longer, what's kind of how many buyers you've worked with so far? Yeah. 20 last year. Okay. So you could teach the class. No? That's fantastic. Okay, good. We're getting the class binders. So we will be using the binder because writing stuff down is better for your brain to keep track of it. So I guess I should talk about who I am. So I'm Becca Summers. I've been a real estate agent since 2013. My first year, I only closed 15, so not 20. And this last year, I closed just shy of 20 million in volume in the worst year in real estate since 1995 nationally and since 2010 locally because of the systems and processes. So when I started, I had a 9-month-old and a 2-year-old. And because of that, everything I did had to be very purposeful because I was paying other people to watch my kids while I was here. So it wasn't like I wasn't going to lunch with anyone. I was here, I was working and getting it done. So I've built out some pretty cool processes that way. Wrong way. Okay, so all the notices, what? No, because I'm gonna have to change the screen 5 times. This guy in the front is my husband, and he works with me, and he will be chiming in. He does more of the technical side of stuff. So this big one is do not call people you don't have permission to call. Get permission before you're connecting with them. You can be fined, and you will be fined if they call you. This is Keller Williams class. It's a top level written by Keller Williams, blah, blah, blah. All right, preparing for this class. I'll skip that. Okay, so let's go to page, I don't know what it is on your manual, page 8. Why are you here? So page 8, we have this lovely section of why are you here? And I want to give you a couple minutes to really think about what do you enjoy about working with buyers? What are some challenges, if any, working with buyers? What is your biggest goal for your business this year? And how will you know when you've achieved your goal? So, no, Brady's. Okay, what page? Keep going. No, too far. Love it when I have an old one and they have a new one. Okay, fine. In the margins, if your book doesn't have it, the first question is, why are you here? What are you hoping to get out of this class? Why are you taking 4 hours of your day on a Wednesday to take a class on working with buyers? So I want you to think about it and write it down somewhere. Yeah, some of the newer books don't have it. So just under your introduction section, just write it. Why are you here? You taking my book? That's okay. We can wing it. Seriously? All right. It makes sense why it's skinnier than the other one. All right, so the second question is, what are some challenges, if any, that you have working with buyers? Being ghosted. Yeah, it's a good one. Happens a lot. It's okay. I have a new one. You want to go have them make another one?
You want to answer out loud or is this okay?
Writing it down, but if you want to answer out loud, we can. We can make it a class question, especially for those who don't have all the questions.
Avoiding them.
What is your business goal with buyers this year? 10 transactions. Beautiful. Anyone else want to share? Okay, so the goal of this course is to answer these questions that you have. So on your why you're here, by the end of it, I want you to feel like the question has been answered. And if it hasn't, please ask or bring it to my attention. But this really does dive deep into it. So I'll skip that. So practices of top agents. So real estate school teaches you how to pass a test, get your license. It doesn't really teach you how to sell real estate. So this is what top agents do every day. Does someone want to read 1 through 10 for me?
Know
Yes.
the local market and its inventory. Prioritize and manage leads. Know their buyers. Are decision facilitators. They master their scripts. They hire a coach for accountability. Know their numbers. Use time efficiently and effectively. They leverage technology and they embrace the KW6 personal perspective.
Beautiful. So this is the 6 personal perspectives. It's a class that they're teaching every single month in the Market Center. I don't recall when the next one is, but it's these 6 things on the board. The cool thing about 6 personal perspectives is it is life. Like it's not just real estate, it's beneficial to how you think, because ultimately it comes down to your mindset every single day. Because every single day you wake up unemployed and every single day you have to go out looking for new clients. We are getting more manuals printed, Amy, so we'll have one for you. So the first one is not in your manual, so we'll talk about it. Does anyone know what the 6 personal perspectives are before I tell you, besides reading it? Okay, so the first one is committing to self-mastery. So this is mastering yourself, your motivations, your decisions that you make every single day. The second one is committing to the 80-20 principle. So 20% of your results produce 80% of your income. So there's a lot of things we should be doing, but really that 20% is the most valuable. So when it comes to buyers, that is prospecting, looking for new clients, going on the appointments for the clients, setting the buyer's appointment, going on showings, writing contracts. That's the 80%. Everything else is busy work. So creating content, writing your contracts, contract close, all of that in different points can be leveraged. But if you're not focusing on that 20%, you'll feel like you are getting a lot done, but you're not getting a lot done. And then number 3 is moving from E to P. So everyone is naturally very entrepreneurial, usually getting into real estate. But moving to P is being purposeful. So that's the systems and the processes put in place to make everything a little bit easier. 4 is making learning-based part of your action plan. So you should continually be learning. There's always something new to learn. And I think that's the best part about real estate is the market changes and ebbs and flows so often that you can continually have a new item to look into or master. 5 is removing limiting beliefs. That's a big one because a lot of real estate is your mindset and you put these beliefs on yourself. You'll say, I can't do this because of X, and being able to systematically remove those. And then 6 is being accountable. So setting your goals and being accountable to the goals that you've set. Any questions before I go on? Perfect. So being successful with proven models. So this is kind of that E to P. Instead of being creative and trying to come up with new things. Just follow the system and the plan that someone else has come up with. So have you read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent yet? Some, yes. So that book, they took the top 50 agents in the country, not related to brokerage affiliation, just the top. And they sat down and they interviewed them and said, what are your best practices? What are you doing to generate leads? What are you doing for cost, for your systems and models? And they brought it out. And this was in 2000. And so they've redone the research and basically everything's the same. Like the only thing that's slightly changed is lead source generation has gone more digital, more online, but beyond that, the fundamentals are still the same. So I read the book every single year and I treat it kind of like school. So the first time you read it, you're in kindergarten, you really have no real understanding of real estate. Second time you read it next year, you're in first grade. And by the time you get to college, you've read it 12 times and it makes more sense every single time. Like the first time I got it, I was like, I don't want to be a millionaire real estate agent. That's not a prerogative of mine. But after reading it every year, growing and understanding different parts of the business, it's been super beneficial. So it has all the models for your business. Start there and then get creative. As you see the triangles falling over if you start with creativity. And the quote in your book is, the fastest route to success is following the model, the best practice of top agents. So here's the model that we are going to talk about today. So this is the 7-step buyer service cycle. And on my book, it's page 11. Do you know what it is on your book? Page 11. Okay. So some of the books are missing the even pages. So we are maybe getting it printed again. So we'll see, but good times. Oh my goodness. Yes, so page 12 that has not in there. Who has page 12 in their book? Okay. If you have page 12, can you read number 1? And then I'll skip over here and have you read number 2. So we'll go here.
Step 1 leads to appointments. The lead conversion process, capture, connect, close, and cultivate your buyers, is about being fast. Okay. This is your first opportunity to gather detailed information about the buyer, determine if they are a qualified lead, and set an appointment.
Perfect. We'll come over here. I don't know his name. Can you read number 2 for us? Yeah.
Oh, Bill.
Bill? Nice.
Prepare for buyer consultation. Before the appointment, you update your value proposition, VP, and buyer's guide according to what is important to your buyer and follow up to confirm the appointment.
Thank you. Okay. Who has the broken ones? Here, I'll let you do it. Okay. All right, I'll read number 3 while we're getting the rest out. So the buyer consultation. The consultation is about establishing trust, building rapport, and earning their business. At the meeting, you will go over their needs, wants, and values to establish the criteria for their home search. You will also cover the home buying process, your value proposition for your service agreement standards, and finally get the buyer agreement signed. Who wants to read number 4 for me? Okay.
Find the home. The goal is to show less and sell more. Once you have the buyer agreement signed, it's time to find the right property for your buyer. Use your local MLS and real estate connections to find qualified property. Show your buyers only the ones that most closely match their criteria.
Beautiful. Who wants to read number 5?
Offer negotiation. One of the most crucial services you provide your buyers is guidance on submitting an offer. They may find a property they love, yet be reluctant to submit an offer, or they might make objections. Your goal is to alleviate their fears, help them create and negotiate a strong offer that gets accepted.
All right, who wants to read number 6?
Number 6, contract to close. What can go wrong often does go wrong. Bulletproof your deals by thoroughly tracking and monitoring every phase of the inspection, title, and lending process.
And number 7.
Post-close systems. The goal of your real estate business is to achieve a closing with a satisfied customer. So happy with your service, they will refer you every time someone needs a real estate agent. By following up with well-chosen service certificates, will make the newly closed buyer a client for life.
Perfect. So this is what we're talking about today. We're going to go in depth for each one, and I'm going to tell you tips and tricks that I use to help my clients. So page 13 is a self-assessment. So I want you to take a couple minutes and go through and mark what items you're doing in your business right now. All right, you want to be my mic runner? That's probably why they have them, because they're fun. All right, as you guys start finishing up, does anyone have 15? I didn't think so. I don't even think I have 15. That's right.
Just.
You didn't go to Mega Camp last year though. So,
Like I said, I just.
oh, just have number 15. Nice. So this is a lot, and this is your job. Like if you look at what should I be doing every day, and I'm pretty sure no one does 3 hours a day of lead generation. Actually, there's a guy in my office named Dustin, and he does. But beyond that, I don't know many who do. The next thing I would have you do is pick one item on this list that you want to learn more about or explore or make an action item for yourself of after this class, I'm going to do X. So after this class, I'm going to explore what family reunion is because that's coming up in February. And it's in Las Vegas, and it's where everyone from around the country comes to the conference and they go deep into different practices. Or Mega Camp is the top agent. So if your production's 10 million or above, you can go to Mega Camp, and that's in Austin in August. And again, another one. So pick your plan of action, and then I recommend going back to the front of the book on this page and writing out your action items, because there'll be action items throughout the chapters. And if you write them all in one spot, it'll be easier for you to keep track of it and remember what you're committing to do. Some of them are dumb. That's a dumb one. They printed like every other page. So we have useless ones. Oh, someone asked a question? Oh,
Well, I already got the notes out of it, so.
okay, perfect. Thank you, Courtney. Okay, so everyone have their action? Yes.
Pick more than one.
Yes, you can pick more than one, but if you pick too many, it turns into a laundry list and then it becomes overwhelming. So then you're less likely to implement anything. Statistically speaking, with people. Okay, so how to get the most out of this experience? Actually, I guess change your action. So page 14. I want you to think about what you're currently doing in your processes. Think about past buyer appointments, what you did in the process that enabled success, what you did to enable failures, and what limiting beliefs are holding you back. And if anyone wants to share what limiting beliefs you have that are holding you back, it's helpful in a group setting when it comes to buyers. So does anyone have particular struggles with their buyers right now? Yes.
Or Thank you.
I have a buyer who is afraid to commit. She has commitment problems, and we've done multiple offers. We have found her multiple homes, and she will always find something wrong with the home for her not to move. She's afraid to move. She wants to, but she's afraid to. And so now we're waiting until spring.
Mhm.
We put in an offer on Thanksgiving Day. And then she just like, I said, are you sure we should just maybe sleep on this? And Thanksgiving Day, I had a really long text saying that there was a reason why she couldn't do it all of a sudden. So I don't know how to manage someone who's kind of going back and forth.
Perfect.
So
Okay, love it. We'll leave the mic back there so we can share it around. Anyone else want to share struggles you're having? And we'll get into how to help people make decisions when they're scared. Anyone else? Oh, Courtney?
Yeah, so I have a buyer, we've made so many offers and the house can be sitting on the market for 2 months. And as soon as we make an offer on it, like 2 other people also decided to make an offer on it. And we've lost so many deals because we just can't, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, that we just cannot get the deal done.
Okay. So what would you say that would be, like, to write it quickly?
Realtor incompetence.
Realtor incompetence. That could be like the story of my life. Realtor incompetence. Okay, we were passing it forward. Scott?
So some prospective buyers, some younger buyers, I all think they know better than us. Like, oh, we're waiting, the market's gonna go down, this or that's gonna happen. And they basically just think they know better than the realtor.
Okay. So helping buyers educate better on the market so they understand
Educating
it.
them and getting them to believe what you're saying. I don't know, because sometimes they just will be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but no, I'm not going forward with that.
Okay, love it. Anyone else want to share a struggle they're having? Yes. We're doing mic because they're recording it for people to watch later.
Okay. So, now again, I don't have any buyers yet, but, the one thing that does, the limiting belief is, to me, the REPC seems complicated.
Okay,
So I thought, okay, the way that I can overcome that is to study it thoroughly.
love it. Okay, anyone else? And I'll make sure that we answer everyone's questions throughout the process.
I have a handful of people who are wanting to move,
Uh-huh.
but they will say to me, when you find me the perfect house, but they won't give me guidelines to what their perfect house is.
Okay. I'm going to call that helping buyers commit. Okay, perfect. So the next page has how you're going to get the most out of this experience. So this one you'll see at the beginning of a lot of Keller Williams exercises. And it's called the prisoner, the vacationer, and the explorer. Oop. No, doesn't show in here. Okay, so page 15. So the best part about being self-employed is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. The worst part about it is you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. So sometimes you end up at stuff and you don't put the time and effort or energy into it. So when you look at this, it talks about the prisoner. So this is the person who feels like they have to be here. Someone said, you have to go to this class. The vacationer, you're here because you'd rather train than do your job, or the explorer is the person who is committed to learn something from this class. So they're listening, participating, asking meaningful questions, arrives on time. Kevin, calling you out. I'm kidding. I can only call him out because we're really good friends and he loves me. I won't call any of you out because I'll be nice. That's a life lesson. Don't become Becca's friend. She'll pick on you. So this is your experience, and if you have a bad class, that is on you, not on me. I'm kidding. I'm sure there's some level it's on me. But let's jump into it. So, leads to appointments. Step 1. So, what is a lead? Let's take a couple seconds to establish what that means. Any ideas? What is a lead? Brady?
A lead to me is anyone who has raised their hand and said that they have intention to do some type of real estate transaction.
Okay, love it. Anyone else? So a lead is someone who signed up on your website, someone you met at an open house, someone who has asked you a question. In the funnel of motivation, there's super light motivation, like send me the right house and I'll buy it. And there's super motivated, my lease ends next month, I have to find a house. And our job is to figure out where they fit and how to communicate properly, because send me the right house says I want to buy a house, but probably not anytime this year, maybe not next year, but keeping them in your world is a way to keep track of them and then touch base probably quarterly, maybe even every 6 months of like, hey, I saw this house come on. Let's talk about it. And especially where they haven't given details of what they want, you're shooting in the dark. You're like, oh, they live in Provo, so maybe a house in Provo. And they might be like, actually, no, I want to be in Highland. And now you have another clue of what they want. And eventually the goal is to get them to the appointment, and the appointment will help you dig more into it. But I still wouldn't treat it as if it's not. So page 19 has leads everywhere. Trying to see how closely the slides line up. Okay, so on page 19, this is all the different places you can get leads. And I want you to go through and circle ones that you're currently doing or circle ones that you want to do. So we'll spend just a couple minutes on it, not too long. Yeah, this is where like some of it's old. Yes. Yeah, this one was printed in 2017 and it was still talking about Yellow Pages. And then when you get done with that, you can move on to page 20, which has other lead sources and then has you order your top lead sources for 1 through 5 in terms of income they produced over the last year. So if you're brand new, that exercise won't make sense, but the more experienced agents in the office, it'll help you kind of dial in what is producing the most income. And while you're doing that, I'll write mine. Where's my pie chart? That's my breakdown.
From the previous years.
No, okay. No. Okay. One thing you'll learn about me, I can't spell, so don't judge me. But also I can't spell and I'm successful, so there's a lot of hope for everyone out there. So here's my lead sources from most profitable to least. And actually it's still very profitable. So number one is SOI referral. Do you know what your SOI is? It's your sphere of influence. So this is people who know, like, and trust you. And the best part about real estate is people will hire you because they know, like, and trust you over hiring me because they don't know who I am. So in the form of limiting beliefs, make sure that you know that and you're aware of it, that this is an industry where people think we're all the same. Like at the end of the day, they think all real estate agents are the same. Cool, thanks. So they're just going to hire who they know, like, and trust. Your goal as a newer agent is to get that trust factor because they already know and like you just from your personal life. And trust is where we help them with education in the market to make sure that they feel comfortable with what you're telling them. So my next one was my SOI. So my SOI referred more people to me last year than my SOI did, which was kind of fun. Usually it's the opposite. Then the next one is agent referrals. So I get a lot of agent referrals when people are relocating to Utah or referring my clients to people outside of Utah. And a lot of that has just come from building up my brand online and building up my Google reviews. Like people will Google Utah real estate agent, they'll read my reviews and they'll call me. Then my fourth one is social media. And it's not random people on social media who call me, it's people who are not in my sphere who end up calling me. So I sold a house for a girl I went to high school with that wasn't getting all my marketing, but she knew me from 20 years ago. And she called me to sell her house because she saw me on social media. Or same thing with my cousin. Like my cousin started following me on social media. And last year I sold him a $1.5 million house because he follows me on social media. So he already knew and liked me. And then he built trust over the social media. And then the last one is lender referral. So lender referrals are hard just because lenders know all of us. And so it's hard to get lender referrals. I've had the best success by just being really good at my job, which eventually allowed lenders to feel comfortable referring people to me. So that goes back to knowing the REPC really well. One lender that refers me business, the reason he refers me business is he and I got into a super deep conversation about the REPC, and I understood it better than 90% of the people he knew. And he was like, that's amazing. So he started referring business to me because I knew my job really well. And we'll talk about how to get better at it. But yeah, so any questions about this exercise? Yes. Mhm.
I'm so awesome.
Nice.
I am kidding. I'm not awesome yet.
No, you are.
But on under advertising, one that I do, and I probably send 1 to 2 a day, and that's thank you cards.
Perfect.
Oh.
Thank you cards are huge. Thank you. Okay. So trying to keep my slides on track with us. Okay, so now we're gonna move over to lead conversion. So someone's raised their hand, said, I want to buy a house. How do you get them to be your client is the conversation. Anyone have ideas or questions? Okay. Yes, that is the number one. Be first. So people statistically hire the first or second person they think of. And if you're not available, they'll call someone else. So I have a buyer that they called 2 real estate agents in our neighborhood. One was out of town for some reason. So they called me and I was headed out of town. But because of the logistics, I was able to be available for that buyer. So I got that buyer, which then turned into multiple transactions because I helped her buy and I helped the referee's mother-in-law buy, and then I helped her brother buy. So being available is huge. The next one is, oh, it doesn't show here. Squirrel. Lost. Yes. Oh, here's where it says. Like, where is it? So it says top agents respond right away to lead inquiries. So the data for online lead inquiries say if you don't respond within the first 5 minutes, they are gone. So online lead generation is rough and you have to be available. We get calls from Google all the time, and if we follow up, like if we miss the call, it's gone. So we have our Google calls go to multiple people, so anyone can answer it as quickly as possible, so we're available. And then get the contact information so you can follow up with them afterwards. So when people call in, I'll be like, is this your cell phone number? What's your email address? Because if it doesn't work today, it could work 60 days from now, but if you don't have that information, you can't follow up. And then make sure that, well, when you're new, just set every appointment possible. Don't worry about their motivation, because at the end of the day, it's better to practice than it is to pre-screen. Like at this point in my career, I might pre-screen a little bit on buyers. Sellers never. Like I'll meet a seller who's 2 years out from selling because I need to be in business in 2 years. For buyers, I might, but we'll talk about how to figure out their motivation, and then setting appointments for A buyers only. Is what it says top agents do. And then the goal is to get the appointment, get a referral, and strengthen the relationship. There we are. All right, able, ready, and willing. So this is how you determine where to value people in terms of time. So you can only sell houses to people who are able to buy a house, they're willing to buy a house, and they're ready. So this is kind of where helping buyers who can't make decisions, maybe they're not an A buyer, and we shouldn't be giving them as much time. Because at the end of the day, you can't do anything to make someone buy a house. Like you cannot force someone to buy a house, no matter how amazing you are at sales. So helping the able, ready, and willing buyers and giving them time, don't ignore your people who aren't ready, but help them through the process. Because this is a process from I want to buy a house to buying a house, and wherever they are on the journey, you can help them get closer. And sometimes I found letting them lose a house will motivate them way more than anything you ever say. So if they're in love with this house and they want to do it, let them sleep on it, let them lose the house. So then the next time around, they'll make the decision faster. And that's why when you list a house, the motivated buyers come and see it in the first week, and they write a better offer. They have better financing terms and everything because they have lost something else. And as a buyer's agent, we are paid to get buyers through that process by helping them get to the point they can make good decisions. But they're just not going to be high on your scale. So it has your breakdown at the bottom of the page. So an A buyer is able, ready, and willing to do business in 0 to 14 days. And your action should be to follow up and get the appointment as soon as possible. I rarely find buyers that are 0 to 14 days. Most of my buyers have a reason to be buying, and it's usually about 30 days is probably the fastest, just because most people plan a little more in advance. But I do, like I had one this past that their lease was up at the end of November, and I met them in October. So we had to get under contract pretty quickly. So we set the appointment, we talked about their wants and needs, and went out to see homes that week. We saw homes 2 weeks in a row, and then ended up writing a contract and closing with plenty of time. They were worth rescheduling my life for because I knew they had to buy a house. Where a buyer who's like, I want to buy a house, but send me houses, I'm probably not going to drop everything to go send them houses. Thank you. We are on page 22. So then your B buyers, they're able, ready, willing to do something in 15 to 60 days. So these are people that you're keeping in contact with, but there's something keeping them from buying it. Usually it's they're in a lease and their lease doesn't expire till May. So even if you put them under contract right now, they wouldn't want to be under contract, but you want to still get them out to see houses so they can feel comfortable to write an offer when the time comes. And then a C buyer is able, ready, and willing to do 61 days plus. Put them in your database, call them monthly, remind them that you are there when you need them. So what does it mean to be able? Opening it up. Yeah. Yeah, financially pre-approved. What else? They made the decision, yeah.
Of age.
of age. Yeah, you have to be 18 to buy a house. So don't meet 16-year-olds. It's a waste of your time. I guess technically they could buy a house if they had cash and put it into a trust. I don't know. Come back to that. Okay, so able. It says, be sure to follow the applicable laws when referring clients to allied resources. Okay, so what about ready? So financially, they can buy a house. How do you know they're ready? Yep, we got mentally ready over here. So like your client who wants to buy a house but doesn't feel emotionally ready, they are able to, but they're not ready. So how do you get them ready? I have found the best way to get someone ready is to show them homes. And my process for showing homes with people who aren't ready is we go out once a week because it keeps them excited about seeing houses, but I'm not dropping everything to see one house when it comes on the market. And when I get to my buyer consultation, I'll actually go through the full consultation with you guys so you can see what I do and say to my clients. And I'll make one of you pretend to be my client. And then also the scripting around the conversation. So, and then willing is kind of the same as ready, that they want to write an offer. Because sometimes the contract sounds scary, so they might want to, but they need a little more help and education around it before they feel comfortable writing the offer. All right, 4 steps to lead conversion. This is on page 27. So the first one is capture your lead. So this is capturing it, putting it into a way you can follow up with them later. I use Command for my database because it's free and it works. So you capture it, you connect with them. So someone says, hey, like I got a lead last night. My sister, who's a realtor in Idaho, you need a realtor in Idaho? Got one for you. She said, I have a buyer moving south to Utah County, or not Utah County, Salt Lake County. And she gave me her information. So I have her information. So the next one is to connect. So I need to follow up with her and say, hey, here you're moving to Utah County. You need to stop saying that. Salt Lake, Utah. Words. So I will follow up with there. Then I'll set a call. So my goal with my consultation is to meet them, talk about their wants and needs, and get face-to-face. So as much as possible, I try to do Google Meet or Zoom calls or in person. I don't want to do a phone call because you don't connect with people as well if it's on the phone versus in person. And then cultivate the relationship. So that particular buyer, she's staying in Idaho until her kids are done with school, so she won't be here till June. But her husband will be here in the next couple of weeks. So he and I might go see some houses, and eventually we'll get her to see houses and write contracts. But there's a chance, and I've done it multiple times, where I buy the house with the husband and the wife sees it over video because that's just how it works with relocation. So cultivate the relationship and then close to the appointment. I have gotten to the point that I close so quickly to the appointment. It's probably not healthy, but ultimately when someone says, hey, I want to buy a house, they want you to tell them what the next steps are. Like imagine if you called your dentist and you're like, hey, I need to come in for an appointment, or hey, my teeth really hurt. And they're like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's see, I mean, what hurts? Like they can't do anything over the phone. So when you call your dentist, you want an appointment. When someone calls you, they want an appointment. They want you to tell them the next step. Whose phone is vibrating? It's mine. It is mine. Halfpriceagent.com. I'm not going to answer that. They're probably going to, I think they want to write an offer on my house, but we'll get there. Okay, so closing for the appointment. Oh, it goes even more in depth into capture. Sorry. So capturing on page, whatever. Connecting. So okay, so 5 methods to connect with people on page 29, mirroring and matching. Does anyone know what that is?
Mirroring their energy, matching their excitement.
Yeah, mirroring and matching. Anyone else have insight onto that?
The last keyword or the most important keyword that we're not.
Yeah, repeating what they say. It's really fun to talk to someone who does it when you know that they're doing it. It's like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're connecting with me. So the next one is connecting with communication styles. So we're gonna, I think the next one is. Yes, I love it. This connecting with communication styles, exceeding expectations, providing value, and asking questions. The data shows that when you ask questions, people feel like you're more invested in them, even if, yeah, so it's all interesting. So with mirroring and matching, it has more, so you can mirror and match their body language, their speech patterns, rhyme and rate, volume, tonality, and repeating the words that they've used. So now we're going to talk about connecting with communication styles. I hope this is a slide. Nope, not a slide. All right. No, I don't want to go there. Oh, I do. Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so on page 30, it has communication styles. Communication, this is one of my favorite things about this job, is there are 4 different communication styles or personality types. Does anyone know what they are? And they're on the page, but assertive, yep,
Social.
yep. Come on, they're on the pages. You can read it to me. Steady, structured, yep. Okay, so this is called the DISC personality. Have you heard of the DISC personality yet in your career in real estate? No? Lori has. Poor Lori. She works with me. She gets to hear it all. So the DISC personality, 9% of the population is a high D personality. This is someone who is direct, to the point. If you talk too much, they're not going to want to be your friend. So just get to the point, give them the details they need, they can make the decision. I personality, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like 19-ish. This tends to be a lot of real estate agents. It's a very high social, fun, interactive, or the words are social, diplomatic, tactful, practitioner of communication, wide circle of contacts and friends. Very fun people. So then the S personality, which is most of the population, it's like 56%. I'm making these up now. They like to be right. They're detail oriented, accurate in thought, follow rules and establish procedures. Have you figured out what personality I am yet? Okay. And then the last one is steady, or C. They listen intentionally. They're steady, calm. Oh, I flipped them. This is steady. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Structured is the C personality. Steady is the S personality. So in real estate, most real estate agents are these two, just because of the natural drive. And I am these two. Which means, again, you can be successful with whatever personality you have. You just need to build your business accordingly. But when you are communicating with people, the quicker you can get to understanding their personality, the easier it'll make communicating with them and getting them to write offers. So on page 31, it has kind of more details of each personality. So let's go into it. So for assertive, they like to take control of the conversation. They make decisions quickly, and they are not interested in the details. So if you are a high C personality and you want to give them all the data, they're going to be really irritated with you when you do that. So give them what they need to know to make the decisions. So when takes control, acknowledge with respect. So some of your younger buyers who feel like they know everything, they might just be the D personality and they don't need all the education. They just need pertinent education. So you can say, well, based off of XYZ, this is why I would buy a house, or based off your situation, I would not, and leave it at that. They make decisions quickly, so they affirm and ask permission to offer further information to help them make better decisions. So this is a buyer who says, nope, not interested in the house. But based off of what you know about them, it might be a good house if you can negotiate it accordingly and bring that up. Like, you might not like it, but can I give additional details? Because they sometimes will decide quickly not to buy a house so quickly that you can't give them a chance to process it. And then not interested in details, provide high level. So this is where you can give them the high information. You don't need to get into the weeds of what they need. So I want you, the easiest way to understand the DISC personality is to find someone in your life who has that personality and assign them mentally as that person. So when you're out in the public, you run into someone with that same personality, you can quickly be like, oh, you are this. So I want you to take a second and think about someone in your life who is direct, to the point. Everyone have with someone? Okay. So when you're out working with buyers, you can say, yes, this person reminds me of my brother. So now every time I run into someone like that, I know, great. We are not giving them the details. Okay, so S, sociable, or I. So they talk quick, they're friendly and warm, and they're trusting. So quick talking, allow time for small talk, which is the worst for me. Like I want to get to the point, I'm so bad. Friendly and warm. So be warm, be engaging, enjoy showing homes. And with that, allow more time to show homes because they might want to chit chat versus look at the house. So you might want to schedule a longer showing window. So think of someone with that personality, social, fun, life of the party. You have one in mind, you can write it down if you need to. So when you run into them in the public, you'll remember, yes, my social friend is a high I. Okay, next one, structured. So they take time to think about things. You need to allow time for response. So if you run into, and this is the C personality on the DISC, and I highly recommend going and taking a DISC personality so you can understand who you are, which then will help you understand other personalities better. But with a high C personality, they will not write an offer the day you see the house. No matter how amazing you are, actually, I've gotten some too, but because of my conversations before, they feel comfortable to write the offer. But if you push them, they will fire you. So it's better to work through what they need and get them comfortable writing the offer. They will ask about reviews and details. So being able to refer them to your reviews or other clients who've had great experience. And really, you should have multiple detail sources. Thankfully, this is not a huge portion of the population. This is like engineers. What's the other one? Yes. Yep. But they also make a lot of money. So you want to be their friends. And if you can, like I've made a great success in this business by being super analytical, which allows me to work with these people. But they're also exhausting if you are not this personality. Kevin laughs. Because they need the data. You can't just tell them, they need sources and sources. But because of their job, they make good money, so they buy big houses. Or they buy multiple houses is actually what I have found.
With this, C,
Mhm.
C is structured. The C stand for control.
Yeah, it could be controlled. It's like an accountant. You know, we're kind of boring, but we get it done. And then S is a steady population. They respond in thoughtful, caring manner, give time to listen, friendly yet reserved. It'll take time to warm up to you, and it'll take time with decisions. So give them time to sleep on it. Okay, so page 32 is your exercise. So I want you to go through, read it, and label what you think they are. And I haven't done it yet, so I'll see if I know what they are as well. All right, I've got them. You guys have it figured out? What? Brady doesn't. All right. So we'll start with the first one, which is I've researched all the homes in the neighborhood. I'm interested in and what they're going for, and I'm convinced that this property is overpriced. Nope. Yep. C, structured. Yep. The word researched gave it away. I've researched, and I have had those clients where they're like, I know all the comps of the neighborhood. So it's really awkward when you don't know the comps of the neighborhood, because you're like, sure, sure. Or just say, tell them the truth. Like, I haven't looked them up yet. I'll look them up. All right, next one. We don't want to stress. We don't want the stress of having to move again for a very long time. We want to take our time to find a home where we can grow our family for years to come. Yep, steady. Next one, it was nice to meet you and your staff. We've just loved the neighborhood. What else have you worked with that can purchase in this area? How do you know how long a house has been on the market? How does closing, words. Yes, yep. Social, yep, this is a high I personality. Lots of questions, lots of fun. And the last one, what do I need to get into this property? Because I want to purchase right away. What is the asking price? What is it going to cost me? Yep, assertive, high D personality. All right, I'm going to skip the next exercise because I feel like I'm not going to get into everything if I don't keep going. So page 35 is your lead sheet. So if at all possible, when you first get the lead, if you could pull this out and fill it out as you're talking, it'll give you more details, which then will help you make a better appointment. So I would take this and make a copy of it and have copies at your desk. Because it'll tell you, if you're working with the real estate agent, who's involved in the decisions. So if they're married, you want to make sure both parties are at the appointment, or if they're dating someone seriously and they're buying the house together. What property do you want to buy? Why do you want to buy? Gives you motivation. What have you looked at? Price range. And if they're brand new, they might not know a ton of this stuff because they're just learning about the process, or if it's their second home, they'll have more. But during the lead sheet, if you can figure out their preferred communication style or their disc personality, that's really helpful to get them there. Okay. So highly recommend that. So page 38 has a lot of scripts of how to get conversion. I won't spend time on it today. I should, but I'm not going to. But it gives you kind of scripts of if it's an outbound call, so someone calls or you're calling them, you can answer questions and kind of helps you scripting through it. Inbound calls with they're calling and saying, hey, I'm interested in this house, how to shoot for the appointment, more scripts, trial closes. I would earmark it and come back to it, even just reading through it, because a lot of people come to me and they'll say, I don't know how to get this conversation from here to here. I don't know how to get the buyer from the phone to in person. That's what this stuff is. But I want to spend more time on the buyer consultation, so I will skip it all, but it's worth it. Holy cow. Okay, preparing for your consultation. So this is page 56 in your book. Okay, so the first part, it talks about knowing your buyer. So your buyer demographics category. So their age, they're leaving the nest, buying their first home or a condo, age 20 to 40s. Do you guys know the average age of the first time home buyers right now? Nationally. Is that nationally? Because I don't know the Utah number.
28.
28, 35, 31, 32. Any other guesses? 25? It just went up to 38 because it is so expensive and interest rates suck. But that tells you when you're having consultation with 20-year-olds, maybe they're not buying a house, maybe they're buying a condo, maybe mom and dad are gifting money, equity. There's ways to get into homes, but keep in mind when you're having these conversations, that the average age is 38. Utah, I'm pretty sure, is lower, but I've never actually seen the stat of what Utah's is. 40s to 60s, they're buying their second home, maybe an investment property, or moving up to a larger home. So slightly different conversation. And 60s and up, they're selling their home, downsizing, or going to a smaller condo, or they're staying in their home and not moving, because that's happening a lot. So page 58, buyers challenges. First-time home buyers. So this comes back to they know a lot. They've read a lot, seen a lot of information online, but they don't understand the process. So because there's so much information online, people actually have a harder time making decisions now than they did before everything was available online. And the average buyers and sellers are using more real estate agents now than they did 10 years ago because of information fatigue. So the stats, like 98% of transactions go through real estate agents. I could be wrong, it might be a little bit less, but it's insane. Which you would think with the amount of, Kevin, find the answer. How many real estate agent assisted sales are there percentage wise? He said 95. But you would think with everything available that that would not be the case. But because there's so much available, people need help getting to the point of making decisions. Yeah, so the next one is in-town buyers, current homeowners. So now they need to understand how to time buying and selling at the same time. Relocation, this one, figuring out, yeah, are you raising your hand? Oh, it dropped. Still, that's a lot. Oh, we're talking about buyer categories. Investors. So if you want to work with investors, new construction, luxury, seniors, short sale REO. Have any of you done a bank owned or short sale at this point? Yeah, what? Before you're an agent. So short sales and REOs are starting to become a thing. So the quick education for you on that is an REO means it's been foreclosed. The bank now owns the property. When you do an REO, the bank has their own purchase contract and it's not the Utah purchase contract. It's very much favors the bank. When you do a HUD, which is housing of urban development, talking too fast. They require you to have your buyer's social security number to write the offer. And then a short sale means that the owner owes more than the house is worth and they're selling it for less. To qualify for a short sale, they have to prove that they have had a hardship, which is loss of a job, death of a breadwinner. They're really hard to actually get approved. And it's short because the bank's being shorted, not short because of time. They usually take 90 to 120 days. So if you're working with a buyer who's like, I want a really good deal, but I have to be in next month, it's an easy way to cross them off your list. Yes.
What does REO stand for?
Real estate owned. Yep. So those are bank owned homes. And you can search specifically for them. There's not a ton, but it's useful to know because a lot of buyers will say, hey, I want a good deal. I want a bank owned home. And just being able to give them a high level overview. Last time I looked, there were like 9 in the state and most of them were in Vernal. So we're probably okay. Let me turn my phone off, vibrate. Okay. And commercial. Here is my advice on commercial. If you want to do commercial, don't do residential. Don't try and do both. It's really hard, is my personal opinion. Okay, so setting up your buyer for success. So your strong value proposition. So I want you to sit for a moment and think about what you have that makes you a great agent for buyers. What skill do you have? What ambition do you have? What makes you an agent a buyer would want to work with? And it's on page 59 if you're following along. It's going to make you share your value proposition. So having your value proposition, your guide for your buyers, your appointment manager, and preparing for the process. Does anyone want to share what your value proposition is? More experienced agents, I'll let you start. Why is someone hiring you? Kevin, what's your value proposition? I like it. Should have made you have the mic. Anyone else want to share their value proposition? So my value proposition for my buyers is I am available and I can answer quickly to them and I have the information that they need. So, and how I have come up with my value proposition over time, because it's ebbed and flowed, is I look at the reviews of what my clients have left and said about their process, because that's the high notes of what they appreciate. So I'd like to say it's something cool, but at the end of the day, my response time is super important to my clients and the knowledge that I give them is super important. So that's it. Because again, they think we're all the same. And then they try to reach out to a couple and they don't get responses. And then they reach out to me and they're like, oh, this is like night and day difference. So it can be something super simple. Like it's not that big of a deal being available. I mean, execution wise, it's kind of difficult, but simple. Anyone else? What's your value? Yes.
The one that I have is I'm bilingual,
Nice.
Spanish as well as English.
Nice. It's a good one.
I think that's gonna be, that's a huge asset because of such a migration shift to the state.
Yeah.
California from Mexico, from South America,
Love it.
and I'm better looking than this guy.
That'll give it all away. Bill, did you have one?
And as we say, not necessarily in this industry so far, because of so many, they haven't had a but in the past, just having calling here, and being able to solve problems.
Love it. Yeah. It's so true. Like ultimately our job is high level problem solving. All right. So page 60 talks about if you don't know what your value proposition is, different things that you can kind of dig into of what you could do. So you can be really good at analyzing buyers' needs and wants. You can be really good at presenting or negotiating offers, helping a buyer understand what they want, because people think I want to buy a house, but how do you get from there to writing an offer? You can help them with pre-qualification, pre-approval, connecting with good loan officers. So there's two types of loan officers. This is overgeneralizing, but there are those who are paid with origination fees, meaning they make a percentage of the sale of the profit, or there's those who are paid when they sell the loan after the fact. Those ones usually don't have in-house underwriting, and your buyer usually gets a better interest rate. Those ones I would not recommend unless your buyer has bought a house multiple times, because the contract to close process is a little bumpy. Because the loan officer collects the data, sends it to their processor underwriter, but their processor underwriter, well, take that back. Their underwriter is not in-house. So they don't have the ability to say, hey, underwriter, here's the more technical situation. Can we get an exception? Where the people who are paid on origination have relationships with the underwriter because they're usually in-house. So when you meet with loan officers, a lot of them will tell you, oh, our underwriter's in-house. So now you know it's probably an origination company and they're great for first-time home buyers. Especially right now where you can get the seller to pay their closing costs. So then they're technically not even paying for it. But when you have the buyer who's like, I need the cheapest, and they need their handheld, I still wouldn't recommend that company. Like a, oh, what's it called? Wholesaler? Yeah. Because the goal is to give them the best process possible, and the best process possible really gives back to referrals to you, gives them a good experience, and makes it a better process. Where if they go to the other one, yeah, like it's the worst. Underwriting's the worst part of this whole process. So there's my squirrel on giving good loan officers. So when you meet with loan officers, just ask about what their process looks like, how many people touch it, because sometimes you'll meet a loan officer who's amazing up front and you really enjoy their conversation, but they do nothing after taking the application. And then the person gets passed off to their processor, and usually processors are the high C personalities, and they're less social and less fun, and your client might feel passed off. Or they have like 5 processors because there's a hierarchy. And just make sure you understand what you're referring your client to so your client can have the best experience possible. Yeah, so these are all the things that you do in your process and what you can improve on. And when you're going through it, what's in it for your client? What value are you bringing to them? And then page 61 has a template. So how Kevin kind of had that whole spiel of what he does, that's kind of what this does, is it allows you to come and say, this is what I do for you, value, to create your own. Buyer's guides. I can't teach you how to have a buyer's guide because I don't have one. A buyer's guide would be what you send them after you scheduled the consultation, but before you've gone on the consultation. So it can be kind of high level, like this is who we are, this is my value proposition, this is my team, this is my brokerage, that kind of stuff. I should, best practices should, but I don't. Yes. Because I'm lazy would be the true answer. Because really, I think the struggle for me and why I don't is I set my appointment as soon as possible. And so the likelihood that they would read it, because like if someone called me today, I would try and meet them today or tomorrow. Like actually probably tomorrow, because today's kind of full. But it would, I mean, from a technical standpoint, it would be better because say I set the appointment, they cancel, ghost, reschedule. Now they still have some value from me where they probably didn't get it from anyone else. So in theory, if you spent the time and really did it and made like a 1-page resume essentially and emailed it, it'd be great. Yes.
So, I want to make sure I understand the purpose of it. The buyer's guide is essentially just kind of a what you're already going to discuss.
To an extent, like this has more meat and potatoes in the book about what to do. So it has your value proposition, and then it has the timeline process, home search process, reasons to buy a home, kind of the evergreen content of our life. Like I've seen some people have like folders that they send home after the fact that has more of that information, and I don't. Like I'm all digital, so it's all PowerPoint presentation, and I talk about all of it. And then at the end, I ask them to hire me, so I don't really have anything that I send them home with. But this, you could pre-send it via email, or you could have a booklet. And yeah, so page 62 has what you could put in your buyer's guide. So you can have really everything: utility information, moving tips, testimonials. So this is a wonderful idea that I can't teach you on because I don't do it. So yes.
There is in the Keller Williams training, I saw it yesterday, Lee Stearns class that she taught on this. She sends a packet. And I didn't watch it again, but I came to it. And so if you want a buyer's guide, I would get into your Keller Williams classes and look for Lee Stearns, because she probably sells it.
Yeah.
I printed hers when I took the class. I've done nothing with it.
Okay, so the next step is the consultation. Oh, gone too far, gone too far. All right, I give up. Okay, so consultation. So this is what I do. I set the appointment as soon as possible after the initial appointment. So they'll call, say, hey, I'm interested in buying a house. Great, I can meet you this time or this time, set the appointment. And then I send a calendar invite with the address. And then I follow up the day before or the morning before, depending on when it is and when I remember. So if the appointment were for today, I'd probably follow up yesterday. If the appointment is in the morning, I'd follow up yesterday. It kind of depends. And I just confirm that they're going to be there. This really helps with ghosting, because if they're going to ghost me, they'll tell me then, and then I don't have to come in for an appointment. So win-win. And I used to be scared to confirm the appointment because I would be afraid that they would ghost me. But in reality, if they're going to ghost you and not show up anyways, it saved me the time and effort to come into the office and set up the computer and get it ready and wait for them. And then I'll be like, hey, just making sure today still works. They say yes, or tomorrow still works. And then I'll come in for the appointment. If they're late, I'll text them 10 minutes after the appointment and just confirm if they're coming or not. A lot of people, because of how the parking works, end up late. So just get used to that, because the address brings you to the front and people can't figure out how to get to parking. So sometimes I'll be like, hey, the entrance is on the north side of the building. You kind of come up and around to park. But confirm your appointment. I do all my appointments in office for buyers, and for sellers, I do my appointments at their house. So in office, and you want to make sure all decision makers are there. I've had some where like the husband's on the phone and the wife is in person, just because life happens. But the reason you want all decision makers is what you tell one party might not translate correctly to the other party, and then you end up with a buyer who doesn't hire you. And then I meet in the offices up here and then the lead sheet or on my phone. Yeah, so it says best is to do 24 hours in advance. And I do everything via text. I don't call anyone. So page 4, understanding your, or not page 4, step 4, page 66. We'll get there. Preparing your process. So you're meeting with your buyer. This is kind of your pre-homework. So in your conversations, you've talked about the areas they want to be in. You've talked about their budget, price point, anything like that. The more you have, the more you can pull it up. So if they're saying, I want to buy a house in Provo, you can look and see how many homes are for sale in Provo. You can preview, like if you want to go all out, you can preview and go see houses. Or you can just look at them online. So then you have a good frame of reference. The best part at this point is I sell so many houses that when I'm going through the consultation, I can be like, oh yeah, I showed this house and this is what my clients thought of that house. It's kind of fun. Or you can be like, oh, I sold this house. Knowing days on market, how slowly or how quickly homes are selling. So then you can advise on urgency. Because we talked about earlier, the best motivation is losing a house. Don't purposely let them lose a house by not helping them be urgent enough, but also if they lose a house, it's great. Price and features, so average price per square foot. Average price per square foot is only useful if 2 homes are the exact same and one's more upgraded than the other. Beyond that, it's not a great metric, because homes with smaller square footage have a higher price per square foot to offset the cost of the land, and homes with bigger square footage have lower because the land's already been offset. So it's helpful, but it's not, is the long answer for that one. Knowing what amenities, homes with amenities are selling for more. So you'll see 2 homes that are the exact same in square footage, but one is selling for a lot more than the other, knowing why. Usually it's because a third car garage makes a home sell for more, even if it's the same size, or a home with an ensuite. So like you look at the 70s homes, one that has an ensuite is going to be selling for about 30,000 more than the ones that are the exact same but have one less bathroom. Being able to explain that to your buyer, so when they see it, or when you're touring homes and they're like, why is this one so much more expensive? Helping them understand values, because appraisal values are different than buyer values. Yes.
Kind of along that line, average versus median, which you prefer in certain when you're touching on certain subjects?
Kind of depends. I prefer, which one do I prefer? I could tell you if I pulled it up. I think I use median more than average, because average can be skewed when you have a crazy outlier one way or the other. Yes. Right, Kevin? You're fired. Kevin and I do that. Do you use average or median? Okay. That's what I was thinking, but I was like, which one's which? I had to mentally go through and be like, average is when you add them all up and divide them, and median's the median point. Sorry. So yes, median. And then changes in the landscape. So you'll notice, actually, this one's really fun, knowing what's happening with the roads in the area or what developments are coming in, which will impact housing regulations or laws, or if there's a lot of new construction, will it make the values go down? But just really understanding your market helps them make better investments. Yes. No, you're good.
Recommend a specific source, for any of these things that are coming up?
A bulk, I use the MLS, and I was heavily debating if I should do this, but we're going to do it. I'm going to show you all of it. All right, so MLS. I don't think I'm logged into my MLS yet. This is what we call getting way into the weeds. So for those of you who aren't into it, I'm sorry, but we'll be quick. Because when I was, this is a C personality. Yeah, D personality, you can go take a water break. That's not my password. What's my password? They make you reset your password every 90 days. That's my password. Okay, so first one, market statistics, average days on market. When you are configuring your MLS, you can come put widgets in, and this one is my favorite. So this is the whole market. So then if I want to do a certain area, 84003, Lehigh, 45 days. So that one's my favorite for that, because this is rolling. So this will show you December 15th to January 15th. Instead of the MLS will send one out once a month, but that one's always a month behind. So this one's my favorite when I'm getting super granular for people. And then I like this statistics tab over here. It's really fun. And then sales per month is my best friend. I spend a lot of time over here. So it'll let you do as far back as 1996, because that's how far we have data on our MLS. And it will tell you, we'll go back to 2004, why not? And then I'll do full state because we can. And then it lets you view the report. So like there's a stat that everyone's talking about that last year, 2024, was the lowest number of sales since 1995 nationally. And it drives me nuts because that's not accurate. In Utah, our lowest number of sales was 2010. So I say that all the time. No one cares, to be entirely honest. But I have a high C personality, so I care. But that's why I have clients who care about the factual data versus the hyperbole of it all. And it's loading. It's going to take forever. But when you're bored and want to play with it, yes.
Laws, housing.
Oh, yes, new construction is on here. UDOT is where I go look for roads. Because UDOT will tell you years and years in advance what they're doing.
Find out.
Nice. Yes.
traffic patterns are.
Yeah.
Traffic patterns are average incomes in the area and things like that. So the per product is going to. It's the right area for that product.
Yeah, so I don't know how you'd find traffic patterns.
No CoStar.
Yeah. How you would find income is Utah Census tracks the incomes for different areas. The Utah Census. So this will tell you, I'm going to show you the graph. So this will tell you more just historical information. So when someone's debating about making an offer or concerned about the value of real estate in general, this is historical information to share with them. And then Kempsey Gardner Institute does a really good research paper every year, and I use that for a lot of my long-term conversations. Kempsey Gardner Institute from the University of Utah. And if you ever see a conference that they're talking on, it changes. Yeah. So this will tell you median, original to list price sold, percentage, volume, sold count, days on market. So this shows you how many homes are selling every month. So you can see back in February of 2009, we had lower sales than we have right now. So historically, we're better than national, but yeah. So I would just spend a lot of time. So if I were preparing to meet with a buyer that I didn't know quite what they were looking for, I'd come look at active, under contract, sold on the MLS, and we'll say that their budget, they think's 500, that's too many zeros, to 600. And we're gonna say single family. And then you can look at all of the inventory that is sold in the last 12 months or 90 days. Really? All right. Thank you. I was like, that's not enough. 101. There we go. And then yeah, good enough. So then I'll come and look at the map feature and see where the homes are selling. Thank you. So if your client's like, I really want to be on the east side of Provo under 500, you'd be like, well, you're gonna be hard pressed. Like it does exist for 5 to 6, but you're gonna have a bulk of it kind of on that section. And then you can go in and look at them. So backup status. Do you know what it means when home's in backup status? I'll come back up front. Yes. So do you know how your buyer gets a home that's in backup status? Yep. Yep. So likelihood you'll get it is pretty slim. So I don't show backup unless it's probably going to fall out of contract. Just because it gets your buyer's hopes up for a home that they can't get. Now, active TC, do you know what that means? Yes. Usually. Most of the time, that's what a time clause is for. Sometimes it's other stuff like they need documents or something from the lender. But that one, your buyer can come kick out the buyer in primary position. Usually there's a timeline, 72 hours is the common one. So your buyer can write an offer. Then the seller says, buyer number 1, remove your contingency, or I'm going to go with buyer number 2. So active TC is worth it to go show your buyers. Backup's kind of a, if you have time, might as well show it, but it's probably not very likely your buyer will get the home. And you can call the agent and ask and be like, hey, yeah, is this going to fall out? Yes. Yeah, so like if I have a vacant home, I'll put it in backup status because it doesn't affect my seller. And then buyers call and say, hey, I want to see this house. So yeah, usually it's that. It's rarely sometimes if they're concerned about their primary offer, they'll put it in backup status, but the showings drop to basically zero once you put a house in backup. All right, buyer's consultation. Does anyone currently do a buyer's consultation? Lori does, yes, yes. Perfect. So buyer's consultation is really easy to get first-time home buyers to do it. Second-time home buyers are a little more like, I already know it. I've already done it. So I focus more on their wants and needs aspect when I'm meeting with second-time buyers, less on the buying process, but I kind of have it ready in case we need to go that direction. So the goal of the buyer's consultation is to figure out their wants and needs. So this is kind of the breakdown of it. So set the stage, bring them in, do their wants and needs analysis, share your values, set expectations, close for the agreement, establish next steps. So I'm just going to show you mine. Yes. Mhm.
You're gonna have that so it's top of mind, so that you can like just share those stats. Do you like write down any stats that you're gonna share? How do you use that in your buyer consult? And maybe you'll talk about that. Is that more just familiar to
Yes. How do I use it? I use it in the conversation. So it depends on who I'm talking to. Some people don't care about a lot of the stuff. Some people care a lot. So it's more to mentally know what we need to talk about, especially when it comes to diving into homes that have been on the market, how long it's been on, if the price is negotiable, if it's not negotiable, stuff like that. And I talk about that in their wants and needs. And then, yeah. So yes, I just learn it all and then keep it to talk about it later. Okay, who wants to be my buyer? You'll be my buyer? Okay. This is my buyer consultation. Oh, yes, you get to have a mic.
Hello.
A guide to buying your home. Okay, welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
It's
good.
nice to be here.
Nice. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So where are you looking? What do you want to buy?
I'm looking in the Spanish Fork area.
Okay.
And I need a home that's have 4 kids, so I need at least a 5-bedroom home.
Okay.
And we like outdoor activities, so we spend a lot of time. So a good yard is a must for us. Something where we can, have a trampoline and probably like a swing set or something like that for the younger ones.
Okay. You said 5 bedrooms?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is that because we need an office or because we need 5 bedrooms?
4 kids and they need to be separated, otherwise they're up all night fighting each other.
Okay. Love it. I have 4 kids as well, and I get that. So real quick, I'll come in and out so you can get a feel. 5 bedrooms in Spanish Fork is going to be difficult. I mean, not impossible, but difficult. So that's why I asked if it was because he needed an office, because that gives us more options when it comes down to shopping. But he does actually need it. So, okay. What do you think your budget is?
Well, we went online and we were approved for 760,000.
Okay, 760. And did you look at the payment of that 760 and do you feel comfortable with it?
That would be our max. We don't,
Okay.
We want to stay underneath that if we possibly can.
I'm so glad your budget's 760. If it was 5 and I had 5 bedrooms, I'd cry. I would say that, but okay, perfect. And then Spanish Fork, do we need to be in Spanish Fork because of work?
Yeah, that's where my wife's family is, and if
Okay,
she's happy, I'm happy.
So if we found a perfect home in Springville, Salem, possible?
Possibly South Salem or North Springville, yeah.
Okay.
Or South Springville and North
Okay.
Salem.
So I just opened up our search parameters a little bit to give us more. Most people don't have city specific. I mean, sometimes they do. A lot of times it's, oh, I want to be in Orem, but I'll do Linden and Provo. It's usually what happens. The more you can give them, the better. Springville. And I take my notes in my phone. I leave a draft for myself and just take the notes that way, so I have them later in life. Okay, anything else that I need to know about your home buying process?
Nope, that's just what we're looking for.
Okay, perfect. A quick question on the yard. Does it need to be fenced? Do we have any dogs?
Yes, we need it fenced.
That's one of those things that might come up as an objection later. So knowing how much it costs to get a fence in would be a valuable asset to have in this conversation. Because if everything else is perfect and you can't buy it because there's no fence, you can get a fence for, 10 grand, worst case scenario. Okay. So we're gonna pretend you're a first time home buyer. So if you're a second time home buyer, we would briefly touch on this, but since first time home buyers are a bulk of the market right now, it's like 25%, we'll do this. So this is kind of the buying process. Meeting with realtor, getting approved with a lender. You can see they happen simultaneously, so it doesn't matter which one's first. The fun part, selecting viewing properties. So once we get done talking here, we'll actually jump on the MLS and we'll go through what's available and we'll schedule a time to see homes in person. When we find one you like, we'll write the offer. I'll negotiate the offer. When it's accepted, we're considered under contract. The first part of being under contract is your earnest money. Earnest money is usually 1% of the sales price. So do you have 7,000 readily available to go towards the deposits?
Yes.
Perfect. So the reason I asked that is sometimes people keep their money in accounts that can't transfer quickly because your earnest money is due within 4 days of acceptance. No, fine. Sorry, those watching. All right, I'll use the mic. Okay, so earnest money is due within 4 days of acceptance. So if they accept it today, today doesn't count. So it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday by 5 p.m. Saturday by 5 p.m. Oh, there we go. So I asked that. So then the next deadline in the contract is seller disclosures. It's everything the seller knows about the property. And then during due diligence is really your cold feet time. So for your buyer who's like panicking about writing offers, it's really easy to get them to write an offer if they realize they have plenty of time to change their mind. And I have found if people are 70% sure they want the house, it's better to write the offer and cancel later than it is to lose the house to someone else after they've lost it the first time. Because that way they get over the fear of writing the offer because they know they can cancel. So during your due diligence, you can cancel for any reason. This is only true for the Utah real estate purchase contract. If it's a builder contract, it's actually the opposite. So make sure they're committed. The builders give you about 7 days on, actually one of them, your earnest money is non-refundable on acceptance. Others, about 7 days. So that's when you come in, have a home inspection, really feel comfortable. Cost of the home inspection is between $400 and $600. And then financing and appraisal is where the appraiser comes in and gives the value of the house, and financing is they take all of your information and send it to the underwriter. That is when your earnest money becomes non-refundable. So that is when you want to be fully committed into buying this house. And then settlement and closing is what it says at the bottom. That's where you go to the title company and sign everything. So from under contract to close takes about 30 days. And the top part takes as long as you need or as quickly as you need. I've had clients buy the first home they've seen, and I've had clients take 6 months. So what I just did is by saying they bought the first home they've seen, it allows them to mentally be like, oh, I can buy the first home I see. Because sometimes people set themselves up for the expectation that they have to see a lot of homes before they buy a home, but they don't have to. Like if you do a good job, if they've done a ton of research online, they can buy pretty quickly because they can see most of what they're seeing online. And then I've had some clients that see personality that they're just going to take 6 months and it doesn't matter what I do. I just need to keep them seeing houses and keep them motivated. So that's kind of the embedded scripting I use in my conversation. And then I talk about not being house poor. So what a lender will lend you might not be what you want to spend. I recommend shopping off the payment you're comfortable with, and then I'll go more in depth into that. So because some loans will let you have up to 55% of your income towards debt, which sets people up for failure. And if they're house poor, they might not like you afterwards, or at least you warned them not to be house poor. Is the mic working? I feel like it's like half and half. Okay, sorry. Okay, so most popular loan options. So this is where, actually, sorry, I'll go back to scripting. So you said you got pre-approved. Was it with a company you like, a loan officer you like, or was it just an online calculator? Okay, perfect. Do you have a down payment saved up? Okay, cool. Using credits they have in Utah. Not really, to be entirely true. So you can buy a house with 3.5% down is the lowest down payment. And that's an FHA loan. If you're a veteran, you can buy with no money down and you can do Utah housing, which I guess that technically counts. So conventional is the traditional, everyone can use down payment. Minimum down is 5%. Some lenders can do a 3%, but you'll have mortgage insurance. FHA, first time home buyer loan, 3.5% down. You'll have mortgage insurance for your life or your loan. VA, I find out if they're a veteran because they can get a grant that's $2,500 from Utah Housing if they're a veteran. USDA is for rural areas. So right now, the only areas that count in Utah County is Payson and Santaquin. Everywhere else doesn't count, and Tooele County. And then Utah Housing works for everywhere, and it is a zero money down loan. But it's really a first and a second. And Utah Housing is the worst. So don't do it unless you have to, because it's very expensive for your client. So it's good that it's there and it's available, but it's very expensive. So I'll kind of explain all of that based off of their down payment situation. And we don't get too much into it unless they really want to, but kind of an overview of loans. Any questions before I move on? Okay, cool. So when you go to meet with your lender, this is what they're going to want for your pre-approval. You're going to want to see your last 30-day pay stubs, 2 months of bank statements, your W-2s, and your tax returns. Or if you're self-employed, they'll want that information. This is usually where my buyers take out their phone and take a picture because they're like, oh, I need this. So I know I'm on track if they take a picture here. And then this is where we talk about distressed properties. So when it comes to your house, how much work do you want to do? Do we want move-in ready? Do we want to do some work? What's kind of your aptitude for that? Okay. Paint, carpet, but no kitchen renovation, no bathroom. Okay, perfect. So eventually on our search, you'll hear about bank-owned properties, short sales, stuff like that. If they hit your criteria, we'll see them, but there's just not a lot on the market. The reason I bring that up now is later people will be like, I want a really good deal. How can I find one? And we've kind of preemptively talked about that you don't want to do the work that would require. And then if they do want to do the work, then I go more into depth, kind of how I did earlier about short sales and bank-owned homes. Or if they're like, well, we want to do work, then I find out where that line is. So we go further back. Well, you'll do kitchen cabinets. What about the roof? What about electrical, plumbing? See how far back, because this really helps me later when I start looking at houses with them. So open houses. Open houses are how newer agents get clients. We don't have to go to open houses. I can just show you homes around your schedule instead of open houses. The goal of this is to not get your buyer to go to open houses, because if they go to open houses, they might end up working with that agent. So that's the goal. And then new construction. So with your budget, new construction will be in your budget. And there's multiple types of new construction. There's ground up. So timeline wise, when do you want to be in a home? By June? Okay. So we probably can't do a ground up build because they're usually 9 to 12 months. But we can do what's called spec, which is the builder is already building it and they'll sell it to us right before it's done. So what I like to do with new construction is separate it and we'll go see new construction one day and we'll go see all the builders available and then we'll see resale one day and then go see what's available and kind of decide which direction you want to go. And the reason I do it that way is new construction takes a long time to show, especially if you meet the builder's agent, because they'll take like an hour and be like, let me show you everything. But I like to bring up new construction because even if it's not in their budget today, it reminds them I can help them later because a lot of buyers don't realize that resale agents can do new construction sales. So I have it here and then based off their timeline, if it works or not. And then the scale is arbitrary, but it's kind of what to expect in terms of pricing. So if you were in more of a custom build, we would talk more what that looks like. Semi-custom means they have the floor plans, you get to make the changes. Custom means you bring the plan and the lot to the builder and then they put it together, and then high end is like Parade of Homes. Due diligence. So this is what you get to do during due diligence. We are what's called a buyer beware state, meaning once you close on the house, anything you find from there forward is now your problem. So you want to make sure you did really thorough inspections. And then I'll go more in depth based off of earlier. We'll talk about like if you had said something like, oh, we want to keep it as a rental later, we'd make sure that that's possible. Or, you know, you mentioned your kids. So I'll mention go check out the sex offender site. It's a little scary, honestly, but make sure you're checking that. A tip, if you have a client who's like cannot be near sex offenders, if you buy a house within 250 feet of a school, they can't be around sex offenders, or a playground, random stuff. But you cannot be the source. You can give them the links to the places, but you can't be the person who says, oh, there's 10 sex offenders in this neighborhood, let's not buy this house. Because that could be considered steering, which I think you should be able to steer around that, but whatever. They're not a protected class, but you can't tell someone that they should or shouldn't pick a neighborhood based off of data because you don't know their comfort level. They could be coming from California where it's like that's not an issue. It's thinking crime rate, not sex offenders. But one that I want to bring to your guys' attention is mold, meth, and radon. So radon is pretty common here in Utah. I recommend having every house with basement tested, and then meth, 1 in 10 homes will test positive for meth. And meth will stay in the house forever. It's like 100-year shelf life or something crazy. And if your client buys the house and goes to sell it in 5 years and it tests positive for meth and you know your client didn't smoke meth in the house, it's still their problem. So it's a pretty affordable test. It's like $150 and it's really easy to clean. They do like a chemical spray on the house. They rip out all the carpet and now it's meth free. But the tolerance for meth is really, really low. So a lot of homes will test positive. It's 1 CPI, which is basically if someone smoked meth in their car and then came into your house could test positive. So it's very sensitive because obviously there can't really be a tolerance level for meth, but it's a big deal in terms of cost when it comes to selling. Because once it's above 1, you have to disclose it. So you have to tell future buyers that the home tests positive for meth. So those are the 2 tests that I really recommend. The rest, obviously a normal home inspection. But yeah. And then I ask them, how do you feel about HOAs? That's why I have a whole page dedicated to it because people don't. And if you show them all these great homes and HOAs, they're going to be irritated because they don't like them, but you didn't ask. So just helping them filter that out, and you can filter it. And then house showings. Yes.
Yeah, I like to ask buyers as well that question about HOA. And asking that question about HOA allows me to first understand the buyer and where they're coming from. Like you said, no, I don't like HOAs. Okay, well, tell me more about that. Why not? Right. And then you're going to tell me more. Right. They put a lien on your house. Yeah, absolutely. But then I can come back and I can say, well, there's some HOAs that cover your water, your sewer, your gas, your electric. So, and they keep the neighborhood at a value that's higher than maybe other neighborhoods. And so if there was a home, a perfect home that matched all your criteria in an HOA, would you like me to show that to you? Or should we just completely not consider that as an option? And I let them choose, right? So I educate them first about why HOAs are so important, especially here in Utah, because most communities, let's be honest, most builders are building homes in an HOA. And a lot of the times, if you drive HOA, we're going to see people with their cars out front that are broken down. We're going to see lawns that are unkept. But in an HOA, that's not going to be allowed. And so if you do have a type of buyer that doesn't want to always be overshadowed by the HOA, I want to know that before working with them. And so I ask them that question. So, yeah.
Yes, and by his answer of absolutely not, you know that it's not going to happen, but you'll have a lot to say, I don't like them, but if there's benefit or value, then they're interested in it. And yeah, and then we'll go more in detail. So then how showings work. So this is where I set up the expectation of showings. So I ask them about their schedule. So what's your schedule like to see homes? Okay, evenings after 5, perfect. And looking at your schedule, let's see, today's Tuesday. Do you want to try and go this week or do you want to go next week? Okay, perfect. So if they're like super anxious and excited, getting out this week is great. And if next week, now I know in that ranking category, they're probably not having to buy now. Actually, I guess I didn't ask. Timeline, June. Yeah. Yeah. So, we know from a 30-day contract if you want to be in your home by June 1st, or do you want to be in sometime in June? Okay. And do we want to move while the kids are finishing the last month of school? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Also, did you hear that? He said get the house ready. So does that mean you have a house to sell? Should have asked this before. Oh, I failed. This would have been the initial conversation. When I realized he had a house to sell, we would have met at his house and done this. But it's true. Squirrel. We squirreled. Okay. And then, now we know. Okay. So if he wants to close by June 1st, he needs to be under contract by the beginning of May. And so we have February, March, April, some of July, January. Whoo, it's going great. So we have plenty of time to get him under contract. So we don't need to be super anxious. And if he can't, so actually, I guess I should say, so if we do find a house that's perfect for you, could we close on it sooner, or do you have to, are you month to month on your rental, or are you in a lease? Okay, so you're on a month to month. So could we close sooner if we found the perfect home? Okay, perfect. So that one moves them from being a B to an A because he could buy the house and he could go month to month. But if he's like, nope, I have to wait, then we'll go out more casually than serious, because if his mind he can't, or like if his lease isn't and the cancellation fee's too much, then we just wouldn't stress it. Okay, so how showings work. So let's go out next week and we'll pull out our calendars and we'll actually pick a day and time. And then let's find the house. So then what I like to do is, as much as possible, go out every single week with them until they write an offer, because it keeps them engaged. They know what to expect and it doesn't feel pushy. And then I do tell them, when you're ready to write an offer, then we'll go see homes as soon as they come on the market, because that allows them to tell me when they're ready to write an offer versus me being like, are you ready? Are you ready? Because sometimes they're just emotionally, mentally not ready. Okay. So the next part is finding a house. And this is also still part of my consultation. So this is what I do in my consultation, because I found it to be the easiest way to do wants and needs. So I did a very superficial wants and needs at the beginning, and now I go away. Okay, so we'll go here. I don't know what I have going on. Okay, so we'll have active. You said your max was 760. We won't put a floor on it currently, but we'll come back to that. And then single family. And I always start broad and then refine. So we'll do Spanish Fork, Salem, and Springville. There she is. Okay, so right now there's 123 that fit the criteria. And now we'll go down to bedroom bathroom count because this will give me the biggest cut down. So that gives me 17. And now I'll go to age because age will also cut quite a few. So he said he's willing to do paint and carpet and not more mechanical stuff. So that tells me 1990 is probably the latest we want to go. And 1990 probably is still even a little old, but still gives us, so that gave us 17. So then we'll click on the houses and we will look at them. So, and I'm doing this all live with them and we're talking back and forth. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, and this or that. Okay, so here's our first one at 529. It's 2,600 square feet, 5 beds, 3 baths, built in 95. So we'll look at the pictures and I want you to tell me what you think about it. Beautiful. So he didn't tell me anywhere before this point in time that he didn't like split level. And now I know split level off. Perfect. So then I can skip split levels. So this one's a tri-level. So same. So do you want to skip it or you want to look at it? Okay. This one's a 2-story, 564, 2,900 square feet, 6 beds, 2 baths. A third means it has a shower, and H means it has a half, just 4-year. So full means it has a tub. So it has a full and a half built in 2000. We'll look at the pictures. Remember, he said he needed a yard. So this, I might be like, oh, can you fit a trampoline here? What do you think? Oh, but this one's in an HOA. So is an HOA definitely no? He's a liar. It is in an HOA. Sorry. That's stuff you just learn over time that builder did a whole subdivision. Okay. So in that case, I'd be like, oh, that's actually in an HOA and we'll take it off the list. Or he'll be like, actually, for the $10 HOA, I guess it's not a big deal. So it kind of opens that conversation deeper. Next one, this one is 597. 3,800 square feet, 6 beds, 3 baths, built in 2004. And then eventually we'll have a list of so many homes that they want to see by the end of the conversation. And I'll have a better feel for what they want. And the more comfortable with you, the more they'll tell you their thoughts and feelings. At the first few times, they're always like, it's nice, it's cool. Be like, I'm not a listing agent. You can insult it all you want. Or if I have a feeling that they're not going to like any of the lower homes, I'll actually start high and go cheaper. It just kind of depends on the buyer. And eventually we'll find homes they like. And then I'll come in, I'll be like, and I have this really cool history button that I can see what's happened with the house. So I can see that they tried to sell it in 2003, relisted it, started at 619, went under contract, came back. And this is where I'll educate about the market. So when a home has been under contract for a couple days, that's because the buyer got cold feet. If it's been under contract for 10 days, it's because they couldn't negotiate on due diligence. And if it's been under contract and cancels after around 20 days, it's a financing problem on the buyer. So I'll look at that and, we can see it was under contract from the 20th to the 23rd. So there's probably nothing wrong with this house per se. It was probably the buyer's financing. Because that's a big question you'll get often. And instead of calling the listing agent every time, be like, hey, what's wrong with this house? Why didn't it sell? And, they'll always give you the positive spin. Oh, the buyer. Yeah. So it kind of gives you more details. And then the other thing that people like to ask is, can I offer less? So you can come and look. So the data tells us that you should have an offer by 10 showings. And right now it's taking 54 days to get those 10 showings based off of average time on market. So you can come and look and see what's happened. So we can see that they did their last price drop back in September. Then they took it off the market, put it back on, actually almost immediately. Sadly, previously what? I can't see it. So if you want to see it, you can click on this PDF and it'll show you everything that's shown up there. Yeah. So it's under contract, back up. So their last price drop was long enough ago, but it's also been under contract long enough. Yeah, it's only been back for like a week. So that one, that price might be accurate. Where this one hasn't done a price drop since it's been on the market. And then you can also see last time it sold. Like right now, people who bought in 2022 don't have a ton of equities. So the price might be the price because they can't sell it for less. But just kind of that extra research before showing the house. And I keep these on my phone live and I pull it up while I'm showing the house. So I can get extra detail if I don't pre-research it. Um, yeah. 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 So what I'll do, so say we're going to see, well, I guess let me go backwards. So we'll commit to next week and we'll have some options. And then the day before, I'll send them more homes and say, are there any more you want to see? And I like to see 4 to 5 homes every time I go out, so they can compare and contrast the homes. But I'm not seeing so many homes that they can't keep track of them, or so few homes that it's a waste of an outing. And I guess we'll get into that when we get into the finding the home process. But then I will take the ones that I'm showing and I'll send them the listings this way. So we will unselect and we'll pretend we're showing this one, and all right, so we're showing these 5. So then I'll go to send listings and I'll type in their email. It'll automatically send it to me. I'll name it showings for whatever day we're seeing it. And then once I've scheduled it, I'll actually have, we're going to see this house at this time. And then they'll have all the information. The public side's not as good as our side, but at least it gives them the address and the information instead of printing. I used to print them and now I don't. Yeah. I think we need a break. I feel like we've been going for a really long time. So let's take a break to a 10-minute break till 11:45. Go to the bathroom, follow up on your phone calls, text messages, and we will meet back and start. Find a hook.
But yeah, I got my wife. I'm talking to my wife. And get to the point.
Okay, the food just got here, so I'm going to send you all back to get your food while we're on our little break. And then grab your food and come back, and I'll start teaching while you're eating so we can be productive.
I found our batteries. They're on this wall, not on that wall. Yeah.
I still hear. I just tell people it's more work. If you're in Provo, you do like what you do, homeowners, I think that's about.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and eat while we keep going, but I want to make sure to maximize your time here. So the question I got in the middle of the break was, when do you introduce buyer broker agreement? So I do the buyer broker right after we talk about houses and schedule showing houses. So I've scheduled that we're gonna go see houses next week. Now I say, so would you like to hire me as your agent? Like, it feels so basic. And then the worst part about it is you have to shut up. Because we feel stressed about it, and it's the natural next step to the process is to hire you to do this. Because again, they've come to you and they have no idea about this process, so they don't know what that looks like. So usually the I personalities are like, yeah, of course, let's get it done. The analyticals will be like, oh, what does that look like? And now you get to say, you're hiring me to buy this property. And depending, yes.
Is that before the showing or?
Yes, so this is the end of my consultation. So we went through that spreadsheet, we talked about showing houses, and then I asked them to hire me. Most of the time, I just send it to them on DocuSign and they sign it and we move on with life. If they're more analytical, I'll walk them through everything. Since the lawsuit change, I have not had an issue at all with a buyer signing a buyer broker agreement. Most of my buyers, I ended up signing buyer brokers this way anyways, just because it's the natural process. Occasionally, I'd have the buyers that we didn't sign it until we did a contract, which was more failure on my part because I didn't do the effort, not because they didn't want to. Yes. No. I have my assistant send it. Yeah, so I will have my assistant send it to them. I did have a listing recently that I had the seller sign it in person on my computer, but for the most part, I just tell them my assistant's gonna send this. It's just the official paperwork hiring me. And for mine, I always do it till the end of the next year, just to save me paperwork effort. Yes. Uh-huh. No. Yep. No, I just get their names and emails and send it to them after the fact. What? Oh, because I didn't know them well enough to feel comfortable not doing it. Oh, is that why? I don't know. I don't know. I usually don't. I just email it after the fact. Yes. Okay, good.
Don't walk through it with everyone, just if you think they will need that.
If they want it, yeah.
If they have questions, do they contact you?
Mhm.
Is that how you?
Yeah.
handle it?
Yeah. And same with when I write my first offer for them. I say, I'm sending you the offer. These are the terms. Do you want me to walk you through it? I would say 25% of people want me to walk them through it. The other 25 are like, I don't care. Whatever you want. Yes. Mhm.
When you're gonna meet.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So because you're basically setting everything up. And if they get to that point and they're like, oh no, I don't want to hire you, be like, great, I'm not showing your houses next week. Like, I mean, don't say it like that. Sounds rude, but yeah. Uh-huh. Yep. So we're scheduled for the following week. Ask them to hire me, send them the buyer broker. And I've had some where they don't sign it until like the day before we go. And that stresses me out a little bit. Cause I was like, oh no, maybe I'm not showing houses tomorrow, but worst case scenario, I cancel stuff. Yes.
At this point, that no matter who shows them homes, they're going to have to sign it just to go look at homes with an agent.
No. Because for the I don't do a ton of sign calls, so that could be part of it. Most of the people that are coming to me are coming to me because they know me in some capacity or they've been referred to me in some capacity. But if it's a unrepresented buyer on my listings, I make them sign an unrepresented buyer form so they can't see the house with me and then go hire someone else. Or I get other agents in the office to show it for me. But I've had no objections to it. Like when it first happened, I explained it to people and I was like, even if the seller can't pay me, you have to pay me. And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And then after talking to their lender, he's like, they have $1,000. They can't pay you. Like they signed it, but negotiate it. And at this point, I have not had a seller not pay my commission, and I've actually made more money because now I have to negotiate it in my contract versus before I was like, oh, 2.5, great. But since I have to negotiate it, I ask for 3 every time. So it's one of those, I don't think it did what they were hoping it would do for people. Okay, so I don't know where I am at on my slides, so let me catch up. Finding a home. How to sell a home versus show a home. That is a lot of data. Yes.
You're calling a seller and saying, I have a buyer one your property.
Oh, I don't do that. I don't do it. I just show them and then I write an offer.
You said in the offer, you say that.
Yep.
They're not wanting to offer that, but they're just countering.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, it's like sellers coming back at like 2 or 2.5, or they typically?
At this point, no one has come back at 2. I've had a couple come back at 2.5, and then I have discussed it with my clients that they technically have to pay the difference. And I've had some clients who are like, cool, I'll pay the difference. And I've never actually charged anyone to pay the difference, but technically your buyer is required to. But yeah, I don't call listing agents to ask how much the commission is, because I figure it's all negotiable depending on my offer. I did have one this past weekend that I sent the offer and he's like, oh, it's 2%. Will you take 2%? And I said, no, because it'll cost my client more money. But he hadn't presented it to his seller. So it was like, that's not really your choice to make. It's your seller's, but yeah. No, they decided not to take our offer, but our offer was low. So in the grand scheme, yeah. Good question. Yes. Yeah.
Support what you're saying. So I've had buyers that I've worked with for like a year and a half, off and on. In that situation, I just closed last month, and they're first time home buyers. I just told them up front, I said, look, you guys, if you find a home, I'm gonna do my best to negotiate 3%. But obviously, you know that I have your best interest because I've been with you for a year and a half. And I feel that I deserve 3%, if not more, but I'm happy to take 3. It's not about the money, but 3% is kind of the minimum that I'm willing to accept. So they found the perfect home. They really wanted it. We tried negotiating 3%. The seller just could not come out of pocket with more than 2.5. My buyer said, hey, we will cover the other 0.5%, because we know that's what your worth to us is, that extra 0.5%.
Yep.
And I've done this multiple times. I even had a client, we bought a home 2%. She's an older lady, but I showed homes for 6 months, wrote 4 offers on different homes. I helped her through selling her home down in St. George. I didn't sell it, but I helped her through that process. And when it came time to it, they only offered a 2.25, and that's what they were gonna give. And she came up with a 0.75. And so, like, if you know what your worth is, you know what your value is, don't be afraid to ask for it, right? Obviously, like, this is your business. We're in a relationship business, so don't forego the relationship for an extra 0.5%, but know your value and know when to ask for it and when it's appropriate to ask for it. Because a lot of times people will say yes if you just ask them.
Yeah. And that's what I've noticed since the change, because before I didn't. Like if it was 2.5, I'm like, cool, 2.5. But now since I have to in my negotiations, now my clients are aware of the conversation. And some of my clients are like, yeah, I'll pay the difference. So, I mean, great for me, but not what they intended in the lawsuit. Okay, so selling a home versus showing a home, page 93. Yes. Very good.
Talk about sending the VBA.
Mhm.
That's it. You want to hire your agent, great, I'll send it over.
Yeah.
What's your conversation about commission? How do you have it?
So I say I charge 3% for my services. And they say, okay. And then when we write the offer, I ask 3%. And I should say commission is negotiable. 3% is what I charge for what I do. You can charge whatever you want. I think technically you can't. Actually, you can do it for free. I've seen one agent who does like a sell it for free to get the list side stuff. So you can do whatever you want. It's up to you, but yes, ask your broker. What? Okay, I don't know the rules. Talk to your broker, but it's all negotiable. So you can ask for whatever, but I just say, this is what I charge. And then when I write offers, I do that. And then if it comes back in a counter, then we discuss it and what the repercussion is. And yeah. And it's actually really fun because sometimes my buyers are more upset that they reduced my commission than they are on the other terms. They're like, how dare they? They don't know how great you are. So like, I appreciate it, guys. Okay, so your job is to sell a home, but as I told you earlier, you can't make anyone do anything. So how do you sell a home without being able to make someone do something? I view it as in giving them the information and the tools that they can make a decision for themselves. So I don't know what this slideshow's saying. Okay. So page 94 talks about the best we'll do. So giving your client all the options, the MLS, new construction for sub by owner, REO, pocket listings, and to be built. Do you know what a pocket listing is? Off market, yes. So do you know where it actually came from? I found out the other day. Made me laugh. So back in the day when we had MLS books, which I can't say we because I haven't been an agent that long, but when there were MLS books, people would take listings the day after the book went live. The seller would sign it, they would take it and they'd put it in their pocket because they would list it every 30 days is when listings would hit the market. So they would have it in their pocket for 30 days and they would tell everyone in their office about it and no one else. So that's where a pocket listing comes from. Technically, you can't do a pocket listing because of fair housing, or not fair housing, equal words. No, the other one. Anyways, essentially, we can't do pocket listings because it's what? Clear cooperation, yes. So clear cooperation says that if you take a listing, you have to market it to everyone at the same time to give your client the best market exposure. You can have your client sign an exemption that says that you will not market it, but you'll market it within your office if you really want to. But in the grand scheme, the true pocket listing you can't do, but there's a lot of sellers that we know that are maybe going to sell their house. And when talking or networking with other real estate agents in the office, you can say, I have a buyer looking for this. And they can say, I have a potential seller, and you can match make that way because there's no signed contract between the seller and the seller's agent is the true way to do pocket listings nowadays. But clear cooperation is under fire. So it might be available later, which would be bad for the small brokerages. Great for us because we have almost 300 agents who can tell you about their listings that are coming up. And you'll see it on the group chat where people will be like, hey, I have this coming up, I have that coming up, that kind of stuff. So giving them options. And with new construction, a lot of builders don't keep inventory, bring my chair back to where it was, online, like they'll post 1 or 2 homes. So it's really helpful to go call the builder's agent, see what else they have available. Or a fun tactic I use for new construction is go look at all the under contract listings of a builder and see if they have more inventory coming up. Because your job as a buyer's agent is finding it on the MLS, sure, that's the easy route. Finding them all the other options makes you way more valuable because they don't have access to be able to find the additional inventory. And for sub-by owners, they're usually listed on KSL or Facebook if you really want to, or driving around. My script for my clients on for sub-by owners is get the address and the phone number and give it to me, and I'll call them and schedule the appointment. And then I just ask them if they'll pay me if I bring them a buyer. 95% of the time they say yes. On the 5% chance they don't, then you tell your buyer, hey, I have a house. They won't pay my commission. Are you interested in seeing it? You'd have to pay my commission. But ultimately, it's all negotiable. For sell by owner, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so then they're not blindsided. They're more prepared. And a lot of times they'll say no. They'll be like, I don't want to. Yep. Yep. And really it's all negotiable. Like you can go in and the seller can say no, but then you bring them a perfect offer and say, here's my commission. They might say yes. So don't take a no as a no because they rarely are. Okay, so this is how I show homes. So we kind of talked about scheduling them. I'll send them to my clients. I will do north to south, east to west, depending on the house. And actually, I will show you how, because some of you are new enough. And I feel like there's never really a how-to class on half of these things. So if I were to show these 5 houses, I would come in, and I would update results to show only my 5. Oh, MLS, you can do it. All right. So I'm going back to map report. And I'm seeing where they are all on map located. So in this case, I would start here because it's closest to the freeway and I'd work my way that way. Or I would go here and work my way that way. Just kind of depends on life. So say we're going to start with this guy. if you're showing a house in the same city, it's about, I'll book a half-hour window. So the first one starts at 4, ends at 4:30, or 45 minutes if they'll let me. Back in the day, they used to let us do hour-long appointments and it was great. Now everyone's gotten stingy. So, and yes,
Plus 2.5 hours.
I don't think so. If they're maxed.
Your client's gonna want one.
Yeah, if it's up to the seller's agent on what they'll let you. So if you go click schedule showing, it'll say how long. And if it is a parade of homes, like they should allow an hour. But if it's like a $500,000 house in Spanish Fork. So for most of the time, I tell my clients 24 hours in advance for scheduling, just because if it has a renter in it, that's usually the legal regulation. So I try and keep that for all showing schedules. So if they're like, I want to see a house today, sometimes we can't based off that. So we'll pretend we're showing this one tomorrow. It'll have little notes to tell me stuff. And then you can come and schedule it. And so this agent allows up to a 60-minute. So if it's my first one, I'll do a half hour because I know I'm going to be gone before that. If it's my second one, I might do the hour because I don't know when I'll end up there. Kind of depends. I'm not going to actually schedule it. So that would be the first one. And then I'd come to the next. Oh, where's my map? I have two. Okay, that makes sense. So then I'd come over here. So this one, we'll pretend I scheduled it 4 to 4:30. And then I'm gonna schedule this one 4:20 to 4:45 because drive time is not too far. And most clients, unless they're an engineer, will take 15-ish minutes in a house. If they're an engineer, they'll take 5 seconds if they hate it. And they'll take an hour if they like it. So you're screwed for scheduling purposes. But kind of rule of thumb, most clients aren't in a home too long. So I give about a half-hour window for each house as much as possible. And then sometimes I'll look, if we're seeing like 5 or 6, I'll see if any of them are vacant. Just because it's vacant doesn't mean you can show it when it's not your showing window. But when it's vacant, they're a lot more flexible if you're running behind, or if, or you can do like an hour window and not feel bad about it. Yeah, or you can see. So because people started showing houses without permission, agents have stopped telling us that it's vacant or not, but it'll tell us if it's vacant. Where? Yeah. So this one, you can be like, okay, it's vacant. So I might put it at the end of my showings. So then if we run too long on everyone else, it's available, or put it right in the middle. So where this one, I think was, oh, no. Where was that one? Yeah, so that one's right there. So I'd put that one at the end. So then if the other 3 take too long, I can end up there last, but it also has the biggest window. So I'll overlap them. But this one's not too bad because it's all in the same city. But like if you're doing Spanish Fork to Santaquin, I'll map stuff and be like, how far is this gonna be? Because it's a good half-hour drive, depending on traffic. But yeah, scheduling's fun.
You text or call the listing agent after you schedule it, or you schedule it, that's their choice?
Yep.
Call them, like if your client likes it, and wants more info, then call them, try it over.
Yep. Yeah, and if they don't approve it, usually a couple hours before, like I'll schedule them all and then I'll go back to the app and make sure everyone's approved. Yeah. Yeah, and that's always the worst, is when you schedule everything beautifully and then one of them's like, oh, we're under contract. Like, no, messed up my life. But that's also why I do the overlapping, because that does happen. But yeah, so that's the technical of how I schedule houses. Not super exciting, but important. Where was I on my screen? Okay, so your goal is to only show houses they'll actually write offers on. And have a flashlight. That is one I probably use the most, is the flashlight app on my phone. Have 2 umbrellas, beverages, snacks. I love it. Okay, so page 96 talks about safety. So. Where is- Okay. The book has way more stuff than the slideshow does. Okay, so real quick on safety for ladies. Never be the first one in the room, be behind everyone. So when I walk in, and boys, you can do this too. But when I show a house, I walk in and I say, here's the stuff, here's the house price, the square footage, bedroom, bathroom count, year built, kind of like I did initially. And then I say, I'm here to answer questions, but walk around, touch stuff, open doors, do what you need to feel comfortable. And then I follow. As much as possible, keep your clients together, because especially if you don't know your clients, they could be stealing stuff and you're responsible for your clients while in the house. So try and keep them together. Sometimes they split up anyways. And then I follow. So I let them go downstairs first. So I'm never stuck in a basement with someone. It's sad that you have to think about it, but it is scary. But the more you know about them, obviously, if it's someone you know personally, you're probably okay. But like those sign calls and stuff like that, be careful. People do get murdered. So fun, fun, fun. Yes, for Warren app, you can get it from UCAR and you can double check all the phone numbers of the homes that you're showing. Poor Brady has sat out in the car while I've been showing homes just to make sure that I don't get murdered many, many times. Yeah. Yep, it is. Okay, I want to get to buyer's reluctance, but I don't want to miss anything good. Okay, so do you know what the classic buying signs are for a buyer when they walk into a home? Like, do you know when they're ready to buy the home based off of how they act? Yep, when they plan furniture. That's a good one. When the kids start picking out bedrooms. Less kids, more mom and dad. When they're like, oh, we could put this one here, this one here. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that one makes it easy. So page 99 has more facial expressions, asking lots of questions, details about the house, increased movement throughout the house, mentally decorating it. So those are all buying signals. One thing to be cautious of with your buyers is Utah's a one-party recording state, which means the seller can record everything that is said in the house. So if you see a Ring doorbell, I actually tell my clients this before we see homes. So then they're not walking through saying, I love it, it's perfect, it's everything I want, because then the seller knows and it hurts negotiations later. So my clients are pretty good at being stoic in the house, which actually makes it harder to read selling signs. So then later we talk outside and they're like, I loved it. I'm like, you did such a good job at pretending you didn't like it. But be careful with that because they can and do record you. And also how long you stay at the house. If you love it and you stay at the house too long, they know that as well. So try and love it and talk about it later or move to a secondary location. Because it gives away motivation. Okay, so let's talk about buyer reluctance because this one's huge. Buyers are hesitant and reluctant because they're afraid to commit. They don't like something minor about the house. They feel like they haven't seen enough homes or they want to sleep on it to get an opinion of a trusted advisor. And I can read. So the first one is always going back to their motivation. Their motivation is the most powerful tool that you can get when working with them. So in your initial consultation, you can talk about why they're moving, why they feel like they need to move. And really, I find more of their motivation as I'm out showing homes with them, less in the initial consultation. Because the first time they don't know you as well. As they start seeing homes with you, they get to know you better, feel more comfortable. But going back, so let's role play. So Amy, your neighbor's Sarah. So we were discussing your buyer is afraid to commit to writing an offer. So what is her motivation to choose to buy a home right now? Yeah. But do you know what that personal reason is? Okay, perfect. So we won't talk about what it is, but you know what it is, so you can help encourage. And this, it gets delicate because you don't want to abuse your knowledge and be like, you need to move because your neighbor is a creeper and you really need to be out of there. But you can remind them, like, if you write this offer, it gets you closer to your goal. Or we'll pretend it's wealth building. If you do the offer, like buying investments are scary, but writing the offer gets you one step closer. You can cancel during due diligence, you can cancel during financing, you can change your mind, but writing the offer gets you one step closer to doing that. So now there's less pressure to write the offer because she can cancel tomorrow. And then obviously you'll have to continue to work through. Be like, okay, the house inspected fine, there were no issues. You can still cancel on financing, but let's keep moving forward and it'll still get you step 3, 4 closer to buying your home or getting out of the situation you're in. And I've found that there's never a perfect house, no matter how much money you have, or there people will always end up settling. So if they know that, actually, I'll show you that. This is not in the book. This is just something I've learned over time. So people buy houses based off of location, price, and condition. And when it comes to buying a house, you can only have 2. No matter how much money you have, you like if your budget is $5 million, you probably can have the location you want, but you can't have the condition you want. Like no matter how high your budget is, because a lot of people think 5 million and I want to build a 10,000 square foot house in Alpine. You can't do that for $5 million. So they have to give up on condition and go smaller. Usually location wins in most cases. Most people will sacrifice everything else for the location because that's the one that's the most permanent of the 3. You can improve condition, and condition is either new construction, the condition of the house, how many bedrooms or bathrooms it has, being flexible there. And I don't tell people about this usually until we're getting further into it and they really can't wrap their head around making the best purchase. So my most recent example is I have a client who really wanted a home in Orem. They wanted to spend under 900,000 and they wanted a basement apartment and they wanted newer. And I could not do that in Orem for their budget. So what they did is they gave up on location and they spent it was 780. And we went to Springville and they got a 2-year-old house by giving up on location, where if they really had to have Orem, then they would have had to go up in price. And we did discuss it. Like we looked at homes that were in that budget and they decided ultimately they didn't want to spend the money, and they could have. Most people, their price is their price and they're stuck at that. But for these guys, they could have, but they chose not to. But really helping them hone in on what's the most important in their search helps them feel comfortable to write the offer. So I'm going to write only 2 so you have a visual. So like right now, if someone really wanted a new construction house and their budget was 600 and they wanted Orem, they would have to change on location and go to Santa Quin or Eagle Mountain to get 600,000 new construction. Like they couldn't even get it in the core. And the more you know the market, the more you can help them understand that. Yeah. And I've any questions about that concept? Okay, cool. Oh no, I closed my book. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. So going back to their motivation, their wants and needs. If they want to sleep on it, honestly, in this market, you can let them sleep on it. Like the house is probably not going to sell tomorrow. And if it does, great. They lost the house and now they will be more motivated to write the next offer. Like that one in like 2000 or 2020, 21, you couldn't sleep on it. Like you couldn't even think on it. It was like write the offer and hope it works out. But right now they can sleep on it. And if they need an opinion of a trusted advisor, make sure that trusted advisor is coming to see the houses. So like if they cannot buy a house without talking to mom and dad need to come and see what they're seeing. Because if mom and dad haven't bought a house in 20 years, their perception and reality is different, and those parents will talk their kids out of buying a house, and you've gone through all this work and then they cancel. Like I was just talking to someone and their mom was like, this is a terrible investment. But if mom and dad saw all the garbage your client saw up until the point to write the offer, then they're going to be more invested. So, so one of the things said they don't like some minor detail. You can change paint and carpet. You can change walls. You can change really anything in the house. You can't change location. So when people are like, I like it, but the paint, find out how much it's going to cost to paint a house. $3 a square foot on the cheap end. You can change that. I like it, but it's on a busy road. Can't change that. But that's why it's 10% less than every other home you're seeing. There's condition stuff. So I like there's so much. This book is so thick. All right, so what are some common objections you guys are coming up with right now in terms of writing offers? We'll make it real life right now. So you've taken your client, they've seen homes, this house is perfect. You want them to write an offer. Why are they not writing an offer? Or what are they telling you? Okay. You want to think on it. So that's what more information do they need that you can provide? Do they need comps? What other homes are selling for in the neighborhood? Do they need bids on carpet or paint? Yes.
Clients want to sleep on it. I'm sure you have.
Uh-huh.
How, or compared to those who write the offer and then go home and sleep on it, how often do you think they cancel if they do write the offer? Can you kind of compare the two?
So I think it kind of comes back to two different personalities. The ones who are confident enough to write the offer usually don't cancel because they have already made the mental decision. Where the ones who want to sleep on it, if you push them and force them to write the offer, they're more likely to cancel. And in this market, I think you can. Like days on market are, what do we see, 56 days? Like you have plenty of time. And I do take that into consideration. So I guess this is how I get clients to write an offer. So this is my scripting around it. So I'll be showing the houses. Brady's going to pretend to be my client. Okay, Brady, we've seen 2 houses now. So now we're going to play what's called the ranking game. After we see the 3rd house, I want you to rank the 1st house that you like the most and the 2nd house you like the 2nd most. And then the 3rd house, we're going to forget about it because if we don't, we start combining and making a master house. And then at the end of our showings, which is why I like to show 5, I'm going to ask you if you want to write an offer on your favorite house. Okay. So I set them up for the mental expectation of, are we writing an offer? The reason I do that is it takes it from, I'm seeing houses, this is fun, to, oh, I'm writing an offer, this is serious. Because my goal is to sell them a house, not show houses indefinitely, because I don't like houses that much. And ultimately, this came from when I was brand new, I was paying people to watch my kids while I was showing houses because he had a day job. And so it cost me money to be out there. So I was like, how can I be as efficient as possible while I'm showing houses? And you should consider that, like, even if this is your full-time job, you're paying money to be here, you're paying money to show houses. And if you're showing houses indefinitely and there's no end goal. Anyway, so we'll see houses, they'll rank them, they'll be like, this is my first, this is my second. And then most of the time, by the time we get to the 5th house, and I don't drive together because this allows them to discuss openly amongst themselves if they like the house or don't like the house. If I'm in the car, it's a little more formal and professional, and I don't feel they have the same conversation level. So by the time we get to the last house, most of the time they'll tell me before I even ask if they want to write an offer. And, oh, I said that. You're happier. Okay, so when we get to the last house, I'll ask you for one written offer. And a lot of times they'll tell me beforehand, or I'll ask them. And then I say, and it's no pressure, but if you want to write an offer, I'll let you know the next steps. If you don't write an offer, we're not going to stress it because then it becomes too overwhelming to be like, hey, want to write an offer. And when I was fairly new, I had a buyer. It was the best deal in the whole entire market. It was a bank-owned home. Offers were due at 5. We saw it at like 3, and it was perfect for her, according to me. And so I told her, I said, if you like it, you have to write an offer. We have to write an offer. Like, offers are due at 5, you're not going to get the house. She fired me because she felt like I was being way too aggressive to get her to write the offer. So after that, and I've only been fired like 2 times. So like it was fairly traumatic for me. So I took it as a learning lesson, and I realized it doesn't matter if it's a good deal and if it's perfect and it's everything they want. If they're not emotionally ready to write an offer, it does not matter. So now I tell people, if you're 70% sure you want the house, let's write the offer, get it submitted, and you can cancel tomorrow if you don't like it. And they never do, honestly. But that 70% gives them the ability to feel comfortable in writing the offer. When the market was like crazy hot, it's like, if you're 50% sure you want it, let's just write the offer. Because our contract is so buyer friendly, it is so easy to cancel. Like, it's embarrassingly easy to cancel. New construction, not so much. They have up until financing to cancel, which is like 21 days, depending on how you write the contract, to get their deposits back. So sometimes getting them just to write the offer to get over that hurdle of it's a big deal. And obviously you don't want to tell them it's not a big deal, because then they mentally are like, oh, I can cancel at any time. But you knowing it's not that big of a deal will help them. Okay, so we talked about, forgot what we were talking about. Objections, common objections. So this one has some common objections that I've never heard. I don't want to get locked in and then realize I don't like it. I've never heard a buyer say that. So maybe other ones. I still want to look at more houses. That one occasionally happens, but I preemptively, in my initial consultation, talk about, I've had buyers buy the first home they've seen, and that allows them to feel like they can. And occasionally if someone's like, I really like it, I feel like it's perfect, I'm like, great, let's put it under contract and we can still go see houses. You can't be double contracted where you have 2 under contract at the same time, but you can still see houses. It's a dangerous double-edged sword, because if you put them under contract and they go see houses and they cancel that one and then put them under contract and they go see houses. So eventually you have to kind of cut it off. But for the most part, because of the process of seeing 3 to 5 houses at a time, they're seeing enough homes that they get it and they're like, oh, this really is the best option for me. So one of these ones is, we're not sure we like multiple houses. We like the one 2 by the bridge and the one by the park. Doing the ranking game, making them rank the houses, has been super beneficial to me to allow them to pick which one they like ultimately. And sometimes it'll be, he likes one house, she likes the other house. I'm like, okay, you guys can go home and fight about it and let me know tomorrow. And they laugh and they think it's funny. And it is funny, and they get to fight. And usually you'll find that there's one decision maker between the 2. And I don't really know how to teach you that one, but once you learn that, I just follow the decision maker around. So I'll be like, they're the one who's gonna make the decision, so I'm gonna follow them, and based off of their feedback. I don't know, experienced agents, how do you teach someone how to figure out the decision maker? They're usually the one who talks more. Not always, but usually.
Yeah, this fits our,
Yeah.
fits our scenario, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, seek validation versus, yeah. Yeah, and when you're doing your consultation, make sure you switch back and forth between both parties. Because if you talk to just one person the whole time, you might offend the decision maker and then you get fired anyways, or not hired. That happened to you? Yeah.
Like, came up and was like, so she was the decision maker, but the husband was always talking.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really hard to, that dynamic, right?
Yep.
So halfway through like the transaction, the wife came to me and well, she brought it up in a phone call. She's like, hey, you can always, tell me this information too. And I had just assumed that her husband was always telling her everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, hey, that's completely my fault. I misjudged it. I will make sure you're in every single conversation, every single text, phone call that I make to your husband, because her husband was always calling me And I thought because he was calling me was because of the why,
Yeah,
and she just, whether she didn't feel comfortable calling me or whatever else. Well, he wasn't relaying all that information I was telling him to her. And so I was like, would you like me to call you after I have a discussion with your husband to pass on all the information I shared with him? And she goes, yeah, that would be great. And we mended the relationship. It was great. But yeah, that can be a big sticky point if
Yeah.
you're not communicating with both parties.
yeah,
I wasn't gonna get in the middle of it.
yeah,
right? I thought
it
was
really
gonna
is.
what they want, and I found out what that was, luckily, halfway through.
Um, yeah, that one's great. I had one, we met with a builder and the builder talked directly to the husband the whole time and a little bit to me and completely ignored the wife. And they didn't build with him because of it. Cause she was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm a big deal. Pay attention to me. Egos are real. Okay, so this one objection says, I don't know. I'd like to think about it. I need a couple more days. So I'll talk about the dynamics of the market to help people make a decision about writing an offer. So let's say the house is brand new to the market. And when I scheduled the showings, I noticed there were 5 showings scheduled at the same time, or not same time, but within, because when you go to schedule, it'll gray out the boxes, which, side note, as a listing agent, allow overlapping showings so people can't see how many showings you do or don't have scheduled. Because letting other buyers show it at the same time as other buyers helps create competition and makes your client feel better, or not your client, makes the buyer more inclined to write an offer. But if I can see it was really hard to book, it was really booked out, it's probably going to get offers. Yes, you can think about it for a couple more days, but it probably won't be available. Or I'll call the agent and say, hey, my client's somewhat interested. What information do you have? And obviously listing agents trying to sell the house. So they'll be like, oh yeah, we've had 5 showings. We have some agents talking about writing an offer. And you can take that information and help your client make a decision, either if they want to write an offer, which they might not like, that might scare them away. But again, it's helping them make a decision because you are not attached to the outcome of what house they buy. Your job is just to get them to buy a house. So if it's not this house, it's fine if it's the next house or the next house. But if it's been on the market for 100 days and you're the only showing, you can give them a couple more days, or you can say, let's write the offer. I like to use weekends quite a bit to get people to write offers, because if we see the house Thursday and we don't write the offer Friday, it's going to get more showings on Friday and Saturday, and you might be competing by Monday, where if we write the offer today on Thursday, give them till Friday at 5 to accept, you can circumvent additional showings, because the fear of loss is a lot more motivating than the fear of gain, which is weird. People are weird. So giving them a loss scenario where it's like, well, you could lose the house. And so it's, if you're 70% sure you want it, we could write the offer before the weekend showings come in, get the house locked up. And then if you hate it Monday, you can cancel it. Like, there's no risk to them. They feel comfortable about it. And then you go through the whole contract and explain all the terms, and then they feel better about it. I'm trying to see what else. Waiting for interest rates to fall or prices to fall. That's super common right now. So historically, prices don't fall in first and second quarter. They go down in third quarter. So if you want to wait till November, cool. And most of them will be like, oh no, I don't want to wait that long. Great, then let's keep shopping. And then interest rates, we have no control over it. Like, it changes by the day. So the best thing to do is to buy because you need to buy. If you're buying just because of interest rates, you can time the market better by waiting to buy from Thanksgiving to January 15th. But beyond that, you can't really control much of it, because something could happen tomorrow and rates could drop, or something could happen tomorrow and rates could go up. The Fed meets, the rates change. And usually they change a week before the Fed actually meets based off of forecasts and nerdy stuff. But ultimately, the difference in payment is not huge. Like, when you sit down and do the math with them, you're like, okay, if you're buying a $500,000 house and rates are 6.5 versus 7, can you handle that swing, or do we need to drop our budget so the swing is not as painful? So I like to use the the Zillow mortgage app for estimating mortgages for people. Practice with your lender before you actually tell people real mortgage estimates, because you could get yourself in trouble because this is not your expertise. But let's say I have 650 for today. So we have 650, 20% down, interest rate, that's an investment rate at 7%. And I always do 20, so I don't have to worry about mortgage insurance. If they need mortgage insurance, make your lender estimate, because mortgage insurance changes based off of the interest rate and their down payment and their credit score, like within 5 points. It's crazy to estimate. So at today's rate, with 650 down, their payment's $3,700 versus stop. And I just play around with this all the time just to track it. Versus 6.5, their rate is, or their payment's 35. So $200. So if they're like, yeah, that makes a difference, then we need to adjust our purchase price down so it doesn't make a difference. And obviously everyone wants to save $200. But we're just in a higher interest rate environment, and it just is what it is. Rates will never be 3 again. So when they're like, well, I'll wait till rates are 3, be like, well, they'll never be 3 again. So you'll never buy a house. I hope to see 4s again in my life, but 3s never happening. Yeah. 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 And then if you really want to get into it, you could talk about appreciation over time and out saving and stuff like that. But ultimately, the data shows you can't out save appreciation. And well, some people can. Most people cannot out save appreciation. So ultimately, going back to why they're buying a house helps with all of it, because you have to be in enough pain to choose to buy and sell real estate that the gain of what you're getting is better than the pain you're suffering right now. Fun random fact, selling real estate is number 3 on the list of stress after death and divorce. So it sucks. Keep that in mind when you're advising people, like they're going through some rough stuff. Yes. And the sad thing is death and divorce often cause real estate to be a thing. So lucky us. But keep that in mind. Like if you haven't bought and sold a house recently, it's stressful. There's a lot that goes into it, and your goal really should be to help them minimize their stress. Take action. Any ahas? You learned nothing.
I like your idea of proceeding the 5 house and then just have them playing the game. That's a good deal. Where what's going to happen.
Love it. He likes the games. Yes.
Position are the 3, the most 3 important, and that you can only really have 2 of the 3.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's 2% for my services. I'll have my assistant send you the document. I think I spend too much time swimming, softening, and
Yeah. Love it. Anything else? Yes. Okay.
You talked about it being the most stressful for people in the top 3. It's also what improves our value. I would say most of my clients are still really good friends. And that is a lot of us.
Yeah.
We take what we're given or chosen and use it to our benefit.
Yeah. We can trauma bond with our clients. It's great. You give me water. Okay. So we're going to talk about making offers and negotiations. Okay, so going back to the Repsy's complicated, my piece of advice for anyone who feels uncomfortable writing offers is to write pretend offers with a timer. So you have to write an offer in 10 minutes and set a timer for yourself, because it gives that real life stress of like, oh no, I need to write an offer today. And you have to get all the information and just go through it and just do it over and over and over. And be okay with making mistakes. Like I've worked with so many agents and they make so many mistakes. Like, it's just a fact of life, and we'll fix it later. Most of them are detrimental. I did make one that was pretty bad. I was trying to get $12,000 in closing costs when it was not common to get $12,000 in closing costs. So I was trying to be sneaky, and I wrote it as, actually, I'll show you what I did. I wrote it as because I missed a 0. So it should have been this. Because mentally that is less than 12,000. It's almost 12,000, but mentally it's not. We went under contract and I realized it like pretty quickly. So I called the agent and I was like, hey, I totally messed up. This was supposed to be 12,000. And she's like, well, send an addendum. It's fine. So I sent the addendum and her seller rejected it. She made me do the addendum because she wanted my client to see that I messed up. So it was kind of a dick move, but it was my fault. So mistakes happen, but we recovered. We actually canceled on that house because my client couldn't afford it without closing costs. And they found a superior home like shortly after. And their location changed. Like, that was North Salt Lake and they changed to Tooele after that, where if they would have been under contract on that house or bought that house, they would have been screwed. So sometimes your mistakes might be on purpose that you aren't aware of. But yeah, that was fun. But my clients loved me enough. They're like, oh yeah, no, I don't want the house if they're not going to give me the closing costs. And they probably wouldn't have accepted our offer if I had done the 12,000. So it kind of put us back to the same spot, and they hadn't spent money yet. So that was fun. Okay, so how to write a strong offer, page 109. I'm down to 45 minutes. Oh no. I felt like this was plenty of time to teach all of this. Goodness. Okay. Number 1, find out what is important to the seller. So knowing why the seller's moving is very helpful. But also, as a listing agent, don't tell people why your seller's moving. Gives away their motivation. But knowing if they know where they're going, if they need a lease back, there's a lot of things in an offer you can negotiate to make the offer better, but also not cost your client any money. Finding a way to make it a win-win. This is a great way to, you can make it a win for both parties without costing parties. That's a great way to beat out multiple offers if you can find a way that's a win. My favorite one's like a free lease back, because technically it doesn't cost your client any out-of-pocket money. I mean, it does like closing cost wise, but if the seller's paying their closing costs, it doesn't. Presenting an offer as soon as possible and making sure you're communicating with the agent. It's always fun when you get an offer in your email and you're like, I don't even know who this person is. Eliminating as many contingencies as possible. So our contract naturally has due diligence, appraisal, financing, and then other contingencies. Right now in the market we're in, you don't have to buy a house without doing an inspection. You don't have to do it without appraisals or, well, you have to do financing, but you don't have to waive anything because the market is still a seller's market, but a little more balanced than anything. Helping your client overcome their fears related to homeownership, building rapport with the listing agent, and focusing on the numbers. I feel like there's so much I could go into it, but I feel like I shouldn't. Page 110 has questions that you can ask the seller's agent to get a better understanding of what the seller needs or more helpful information when writing an offer. So can you send this disclosure statements now? So in Utah, we don't do seller disclosures before, so you could get them if you'd like. That can help your client feel more comfortable writing an offer if they see the seller disclosures, because it'll tell you there's not much wrong with the house, because most of them don't give you much information. 7, has the seller rejected any offers? This could save you writing any offers, especially these homes that have been on the market for 200+ days. You might be able to be like, oh, we want to offer 640, but the seller has rejected multiple offers at 640. However, if they're still on the market, I'd probably still write the offer just because they might have rejected it once and now they feel bad about rejecting it. But if it's been on the market for 2 weeks and they've rejected it, they're less motivated. I let time do a lot of heavy lifting for us. How would you like it delivered? Some listing agents are very particular. They want you to send it to their assistant. Usually it's in the remarks, or they want you to write it a certain way. But sometimes those agents are hard to get a hold of. So when you are writing the offer, so educating your buyer on page 111, big thing we talk about is earnest money. For down payment, I always just put that they're putting 20% down if they're putting 20% down or more. I don't put if they're putting 50% down because that doesn't help your client in negotiations. Because it's like, oh, they have more money, so they could pay more. They might not want to, especially if you're offering less than list price. Or if they have any form of down payment, I'll put the down payment amount. Don't put to be determined in there because that makes it feel like you haven't talked to their lender and know what type of financing they're doing. So sales price, list to ratio. So a lot of people will ask, can I offer less? So how I determine that is I'll do a CMA on the neighborhood, and then I'll also look at how long it's been on the market and what the list to sales price ratio is in the market in general. So if it's been on the market more than 30 days and they haven't done a price drop, usually we can offer 3 to 5% less and still get it accepted. If it's been on the market longer than that, the CMA is a better analysis of the value. But yeah, so I'll take those into consideration, the history, the amenities, the upgrades. You can look at what the seller originally paid for it, especially for these sellers who are selling homes that they bought in 2022 and the home isn't worth any more than what they paid for it. Because they might not be able to sell without short selling. Yeah, or seller financing. Sorry, I'm trying to be good with our time, but also this is good stuff. Page 115, we don't do that. If you change the price, you have to do an actual contract change. One thing that you will learn is on acceptance time, I'd say about 50% of the time agents let your acceptance time lapse. Because acceptance only means they're accepting the contract as it currently sets. If they plan to counter or change anything in the contract, they will, actually, I'll do this for the newer agents. They'll just counter. So the deadlines in our contracts are seller disclosures, due diligence, financing and appraisal, and settlement. Settlement closing. So for due diligence, I usually give about a week for the sellers, so 7 days when you're writing the contract. This is section 24, A, B, C, D in your contract. For due diligence, if I'm trying to be competitive, I'll do 10 days. 14 days is usually what I like to do. If I feel like I need more time, I'll go longer. So depending on the market we're in, financing appraisal 21 to 28. I'll do 21 if I know and like the lender. If I don't know the lender, I'll do 28 because that gives me time for them to make a mistake. And then settlement's usually 30 to 45. And I keep this as short as possible because you don't want your buyers to change their mind and buy another house. I mean, they can, but then you just start the process all over again. But that's kind of a standard contract time frame. And obviously there's reasons to change later. But when you write the offer, it's easy to do that and do them all during business days. Because if you do it on a Saturday, it's really hard to negotiate or talk to the lender on a Saturday. Yes. None. Yeah. Yeah. So if it's a buyer who wants me to tell them everything in the contract, I'll go through the contract. So I'll write it, I'll send it to them and over the computer, or I'll call them and we'll walk through each section. And when we get to that section, I'll say, and I'll tell you the deadlines at the end, and then at the end, I'll tell them the deadlines. I don't really explain why, because I don't know if anyone cares that much. They might, but I have yet to have someone ask. Well, that's once they're under contract. It's the next section.
Fast forward.
Yeah, yeah. Number 7 on this 10 negotiation strategies is don't use your commission in negotiations. Use it as like a last straw at the end. Like we're all falling apart, and if both agents will bring $1,000 to the table, fine, but don't do it up front because stuff falls apart later, and it's nice to have that in your arsenal. Yes.
Is it feel like in a multiple offer situation, for instance, if I'm giving my client's best offer and it may make it more competitive to lower my commission to 2.5% because that's just going to decrease the net to the seller, is that something that you would entertain in just the beginning in a situation like that?
I mean, technically no, because your client still owes you that extra 0.5%. So it doesn't, I mean, yes, it nets the seller more, but it costs your client more in the grand scheme. But I do think that'll happen as multiple offers happen, that agents, and we saw that in the last market, like agents would come back and be like, you were offering 2.5, but I'll do it for 2 to help the net. But ultimately for me, reviewing multiple offers, that's only a component in it. Because yeah, you might do it for 1%, but you might be terrible and I might not want to work with you. And my client might not want to work with you. I know you're great, but like when I'm reviewing offers and looking at stuff like that, I'll look at the agents and I'll look at their sales record and I'll see what their what the list price was, what they bought it for, and how much concessions they got. And if we have multiple agents competing and we have one that's a known bulldog or one that I know they're going to put it under contract and then ask for additional 30 grand, which one is crazy, then I'm going to advise my client that way and they might not get the house. So ultimately net's a component of it, but your reputation's a big deal too. But yeah, so it'll definitely happen. But that's where making it a win-win in other cases is beneficial. Letting the seller stay for 2 months might be way more valuable to them than an extra 5 grand because moving twice sucks. Do you have something? Oh. Okay. Any questions on negotiations? Like my recommendation for that is never split the difference. If you ever negotiate with me and split the difference, I will know you're a weak negotiator, so don't do it. Read the book. It's really good. And just find ways to make it a win without compromising your client or hurting your client. Letting the seller stay longer, letting the seller keep their fridge. Like there's so much you can do to benefit everyone. Now we're going to go to contract close. Okay, so contract to close, you put it under contract. Now how do you get them to close? So what we initially do when we put a home under contract is we send an email that has all the information and then we send calendar invites with every single date. So it'll have their due diligence and it'll have a little verbiage of what is in due diligence. We schedule as much as we can for them because my goal is to make it easy for them. So I give them option of inspectors and then I schedule the inspection, schedule with the seller. Your hurdles are going to be inspections, appraisals, and loans. As much as possible, unless there's a condition issue, I have the lender order the appraisal as soon as we go under contract. If I'm concerned about due diligence, then we'll wait, but that pushes everything. Because right now, from the time they get the order to the time the appraisal comes in is about 10 days. So if you wait till 14 days into the contract, now you only have 7 days till their financing and appraisal deadline and you're in trouble. So I like to kind of overlap those two. So with inspections, some of it I try to preemptively do in the walkthrough. So when I'm showing the house, I look at the roof, the furnace, the water heater, and I advise my client based off of our offer if these things are going to be a problem. If they are, we ask for a home warranty. So a water heater has about a 10-year life. A furnace is 20 years, a roof is 20 to 30 years. And I point that out before they ever write the offers. So then we don't get to the inspection. They're like, all the systems are old. You didn't tell me. It's like, well, we talked about it. That's why we offered less or got concessions or got closing costs or stuff like that. Because the more you can not have surprises, the easier it is during due diligence. And then I like them to work with my preferred inspectors. So right now in Utah, there's no regulation on inspectors. Like anyone could just sign up and say, I'm an inspector. So I like them working with inspectors I know because one, I know their bedside manner. So they're going to be like, yes, this house is 100 years old. This is expected. Versus some inspectors could be like, the plumbing is ruined, the electrical is ruined. It's like, it's a 100-year-old house. Of course it is. So kind of setting up the expectations. But also you don't want to be accused of steering anyone in any direction. So they can pick their own. So we offer to let them pick their own, or we have some we recommend. But I have more issues when they pick their own because it's like random bad inspector. I recommend brick and batten, brick to batten, yeah. And for me personally, I like inspectors that the inspector is the owner of the company. I don't really like the inspectors where it's the inspector has multiple sub inspectors, because I feel like there's less control in that process. And then I like a really good report because then it tells me what's the most important versus, and some inspection reports, like I had one inspector I loved dearly, but he made everything sound like a nightmare because I think he'd been sued too many times. So everything was scary and like he scared the crap out of buyers. He's a great inspector if you need to beat up the seller later. But if your buyer is gonna panic, he's not my favorite. And then, yeah, so as soon as we go under contract, we send the contract to the lender and the title company so they can get started on their stuff because asking for an extension is painful in negotiations. Like never go under contract expecting to ask for an extension or expecting to ask for anything. Our real estate purchase contract is an as-is contract, which I'm pretty sure no one even considers when they write the offer, which means you're saying you're buying it as is. You're not going to ask for repairs, but everyone does because we do. But setting your client up for that expectation, like never ever buy a house with the expectation that you're going to beat them up in repairs later because you might be into an inspection and an appraisal and the seller will be like, nope, not interested. And now your client spent all that money. So do it up front. So if you want to say the house is really bad condition, we want to offer 50 grand less, come to them with receipts of like why and value. Don't just say it should be 50 grand less. I guess I kind of already did this. This is the contract to close deadline timeframe on page 119. 49 days. Yeah, right. Okay, so let's talk about it. What can go wrong in the contract to close process? What have you seen happen?
Pops up.
Yeah. A lien pops up. So that one is more a seller. As a seller's agent, I have title pulled immediately after I sign the listing agreement. So there are no surprises because I actually have had the first one where the liens were more than the house was worth. So it should have been a short sale. So the seller was in breach and my client could have sued him. First time in 12 years. So it doesn't happen very often, but yes, a lien could come up.
We just canceled the contract because of that.
Yeah? Was it a house in Spring? Okay. Ah, interesting. Yeah, and that will be more common in the market environment we're in. Mine, the seller had a bankruptcy and had judgment tied against his house and they were being super sneaky about it. Use your own title company was that one's life lesson. My title company caught it. Okay, so what else? FERPTA. That is so niche. No one needs to know about FERPTA. FIRPTA is Foreign Real Estate Investment Protection Act, happened in the 1980s. If your client's a foreign investor, come talk to me. We'll discuss. Okay. Yes, that's a big one. Your buyer does something stupid. So your buyer's qualified debt to income wise when you write the contract and they go get more debt. So it messes up their debt to income ratio. So make sure when you're talking with your buyer that you discuss not to do that, especially your first time home buyers. And having a good lender helps a lot with that because they're staying in contact with them and making sure they're not taking on additional debt. I think that was one of the things.
Her job as she left the closing, the next day before funding, they called to verify her employment because she was gone.
Oh.
Yes, tell your client they will do a verification employment up until 24 hours. That's crazy. Yeah, don't get fired. I did have a client get fired in the middle of our transaction. I got an extension for 30 days because the roof needed to be replaced and she got a new job and was good by the time we closed again. But that was insane. That was the same buyer that it was 12 grand on the wrong concessions. Yeah.
Had a client bought a truck the morning of the closing. Like he went into the dealership.
Oh.
Got his truck, he bought it. He comes to closing and he tells me and the title company, "Dude, you guys, guess what? I just bought a truck." And I'm like, "What?"
So what happened?
So luckily, the financing, he called the dealership and said, "Hey, don't, like, I can't do financing on this."
Yeah.
You can get it directly through that. He had signed on the paperwork, but he told him, he said, "I need you to hold off on the financing." We immediately, at the title company, called them, they kind of put it through yet. So he was able to postpone it until eventually after we finally recorded.
Yeah, don't buy a car unless you want to mess someone's life up. Yeah, so this one has kind of different ones. My recommendation for this section is there's a book called Shift, and there's a section on bulletproofing the transaction, and it goes very deep into details of different things that are coming up. Funds not available at closing. I have never had that happen. Like, as long as you have a good lender working with your client, they should be fine. The property doesn't appraise. That does happen. So as a buyer's agent, you can submit new comps to the appraiser to get them to adjust their value. I haven't had it happen a ton, but you can. The other way is to get the seller to reduce their purchase price. And it's just, yeah, so doing a CMA, but also to avoid appraisal problems, don't offer stupidly high prices. Like if it's listed at 500, don't offer 600. It's not going to appraise for 600. The seller might take it and now they're mad when the appraisal comes in at 520. So less common right now. We had a lot of appraisal issues back in the hot market and we had appraisal floors and paying cash over. But it's kind of on the market. Like our market's as painful as it is, it's actually pretty nice right now for that. Post-close system. So what we do for our post-close, sorry, you're getting the short version, but then I'm leaving it open for Q&A at the end. Okay, so our post-close system is our 36 touch, which is staying in contact with people 36 times in the year. And then we send a thank you card at Thanksgiving time. So if someone were to close in December, they won't get a thank you card until next year. Because it's unexpected at Thanksgiving, where it's kind of expected immediately after. And then in January, we send their settlement statement to them because you can write off some of your fees associated with buying a house on your taxes. And it's again, a kind of surprise, unexpected thing. But your post-close is how you create clients for life. So some agents will close and never talk to their client again. So those clients will go in and hire someone else, even if they had a great experience with you, because you're not staying with them. Because people hire the first or second person they think of. So your job post-close, and statistically, people don't buy a house for 5 to 7 years. So you have to have a post-close system for 5 to 7 years, really for the rest of their life. Like that's the goal, is to build clients for life. Because if they had a good experience with you, they'll refer friends and family. And then eventually you'll get to the point that your database gives you all of your business. So staying top of mind. On page 128 has ideas for the 33 touch. So it's now 36. They've done the data of like how many times consistently you have to stay in contact with people. And we all overcomplicate this. So 24 emails. 12 postcards. Gives you 36 touches. Like, it's not that hard. Hi, Scott. But you have to get them to open their emails and read their postcards. So you can also do events. Events are a great way to still stay in contact. Here at the office, we have two that the office kind of pulls together, makes it easier for everyone. We rent out Summit Splash in Provo and Jakers, and you can pay for how many clients you invite. But with the events, you can send a postcard, an email, and you can text people or call them. So then you get 3 out of that one event. But the point of it being 36 is it's throughout the year. Because if you do a ton of communication today and then ignore them for 2 months, they won't remember you. And your whole goal is just to stay top of mind when it comes to that. So you can give people gifts. And then surveys, reviews, and testimonials. So what I have found the best success to get people to leave me reviews is after they sign, but before they've funded, I ask them for the review at that point because they still need you in their life. If I ask after closing, it doesn't happen as often just because they're moving, they're busy, especially for buyers because they can't move yet. They don't have keys. And it's a high, like they're excited, they just bought a house, they're in a good mental set. So I send them a text and I say, could you leave me a review? And it's just a link to Google so they can fill out and leave the review. And we get a lot of business from our Google reviews because I only ask for reviews from actual clients. So you'll see some agents who have like thousands of reviews and it's like, they gave me tickets to a movie, so here's their review. They're not getting the same amount where people will read my reviews and they'll call me specifically because of our reviews.
Say that was after, but before closing, after what?
Yes, so after they sign, but before they close. So before it funds, really. And then stay in contact on social media. I friend all of my clients. But I friend them earlier. Like I friend them as soon as possible. Okay, so that I think is the end. So at the beginning of your book, where I had you write your ahas, I want you to write 2 or 3 things that you want to implement from this class. And I also want you to implement Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss and Shift by Gary Keller. Are the 2 books I want you to read. And then I want you to write a couple ahas and I want you to share. Never, yeah. I'm halfway through it. It's pretty good. Never split the difference. So for negotiations, never split the difference. And then for bulletproofing the transaction, shift. And that one's Gary Keller. Okay, so have we helped buyers, how to help buyers make better decisions? Do you feel like that was answered? Yes, okay. Helping your buyer win multiple offers. Feel like in between. Talked about how to structure a good offer, maybe. Educating buyers on the market. The Rep C being complicated. Yeah, not as much, but just reading it and practicing it. And then helping buyers commit. Yeah, okay. So let's go over the Rep C real quick to make sure everyone feels comfortable. Actually, let's not. I'll do that at the end because I know some people don't need that training. So what ahas do you have that you want to share? And when it comes back to this 6 personal perspectives, finding a way to be accountable. So you came to this class, you spent hours of your life that you'll never get back. So how can you take those and implement them in your life? Putting it on your calendar as something to come back and review, telling someone else about it so they can ask you about it. What piece of accountability do you need to put into what you're going to do moving forward? I know I just gave you like a lot of things too. Ahas.
Yeah, I'm gonna create a Trump buyer guide to be sent out. And the appointment set and the time.
Nice. I like it. What else?
I like the idea of using the Kim C. Gardner for stats.
Yeah.
So just going down to the planning and zoning department of the city, you just be like, hey, they're planning on maybe putting a Walmart or whatever. You know, so you can kind of get a lay of the land.
Yeah.
City. So fast. Make your way path.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories there is there's a connector road from Vineyard to American Fork that's going through. And they've been talking about it for years and years. You're giving me a look of like surprise. Yeah, so the one, so 800 North connects down and that road is going to connect to Pioneer Crossing. And I've known about it for years. And there's a big section where all the developers have not built, and that's where it's going. And one of my friends bought a house that backs that road. I wasn't his realtor because he's a realtor. He should know better. And I said that to him. I said, everyone knows that. He's like, I didn't know that. Like, obviously, because you just bought a house that's going to back to Connector Road. But that would have been valuable information. And like all my clients, I told them about it. So they never bought there. So adding value in the future. But yeah, by knowing roads. Like it. What else? Yes.
Kind of similar with that, there's a lot of resources just with each individual city.
Yeah.
Before this, I worked, with cities for accounting and that, and so I work a lot with, renters. And just bringing them the knowledge of when they say, well, how are utilities usually? So if they know they're fine, or
Yeah.
about 200, you can just give them those numbers. Like, hey, well, this is what the breakdown is, and I've had a lot of feedback on that, on how much they've just gained trust in me, how like I'm young, but that gains a lot of respect that you have that information for them. So as much as you can, get information before they ask, so you have that knowledge.
Yeah, love it. Information, you can never have enough. Every quarter, the office or the region does a market review and they go into a lot of data and stats. I think the first one is this month, at the end of this month on the 30th. I would highly recommend signing up for it because it just helps you understand the economics of our job beyond buying and selling houses. What else? No other ahas. Yes.
I wrote down that I'm going to learn the DISC system better so that I can better communicate with my clients, because I can see it usually after the fact, but not while I'm in it. And I'm like, oh, I could have been better here.
Yeah.
If I mirrored their life.
Yeah. I like it. DISC. Love it. Yes.
You are writing an offer receiving multiple offers and you said, I'll just go check out the agent and then I'll look how many, what they had under contract, what concessions they got, so I know who I'm working with. This is a goal up. Like, that's just such an interesting, path to take to kind of assess all the information. It's just something I wouldn't have probably thought.
Thank you. Yep. So I'll stalk you when you're sending offers. Yes.
Focus on writing an offer, just how you subtly guide them. You're guiding them to that, even though you don't really explicitly tell them that.
Yeah.
One client in particular has been looking for 8 or 9 months, and so I think if I approached it a little differently, it might not still.
Yeah. And I do have clients that they're going to take their forever just because that's their personality, but knowing it makes it so much easier. Because you're like, you'll buy eventually, but I'm not going to give you the time I would give someone who's buying tomorrow. Just emotionally, not, you should give everyone their time, but yeah, good. What else? Yes.
Offers, maybe if you're 70% sure, let's move forward, like, that's a great, it's so hard, like, I don't wanna pressure them, but I love that, I'm kind of a math person, so I love that number, to kind of guide them to move forward and talk to them through about if they wait over the weekend or not, getting it off the market, and then they can cancel Monday, like, it just walks them through it, moving them forward, but it doesn't feel pressure. So that was, you know, some of those dialogues, the scripts are helpful.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, any other ahas or questions? I guess I can open it to questions now. Yes.
I'm gonna watch the recording, I was a little bit late, so I didn't find it, but this gentleman was talking about finding out future developments.
Mhm.
Where you can get a short answer, the best way to find people price to that.
The easiest one is UDOT. UDOT will tell you a lot of what's happening road-wise, but then city by city is really the best, which is not the best. But yeah, future development's huge for helping your clients make good investments. And even if it's a home they're buying and they never plan to sell, they still eventually will sell, even if it's their kids selling it. So, and I always think about that when I'm advising, like if you call me in 5 years and I have to sell it, am I going to be hard to sell and I helped them make a bad decision? Or at least I warned them, like if it's on a busy road, it's gonna sell for less and they're mentally prepared for that when I sell it in 10 years. Yeah. What other questions? Yes.
Okay, when I'm trying to have my empty box time at home and I'm going to YouTube Shorts,
Mhm.
I keep on seeing your mug. What do I do to get out of that algorithm?
I think you have to stop watching my stuff. There's probably an uninterested button in there somewhere.
No, I guess with the new lawsuit, I haven't been in much after it's happened and taken effect. But say I have like a Zillow lead, and they want to go look at a house that day.
Mhm.
What contract wise, is it still, do we still just do a normal contract with them? And the whole shebang versus
Yep.
like, you have to have something granted before you show a house?
Yeah.
There's no like other contract or something to do that?
Yeah, so some brokerages are using a touring agreement to circumvent that, but we aren't, so we just do. And you can do it for that property and you can do it for that day if you want. But yeah, you have to have something signed before you show it.
Having this printed out once too, so it's just.
Bring it to the house. Yeah. That feels awkward. Hey, you have to sign this before I walk in. What if they say no? Do you just not walk in? Like, all right, peace out.
I have done that.
Did you walk away?
The client before it was mandatory.
Yeah.
I know they're going to be my clients. And right after August 15th, it was like, we just found something, can you show us? And I walked up with a contract and said, yeah, so we just like this, we can go.
Yeah, that's
So
easier than
it's-
Zillow.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard because I had so many that we were working with that I was like, oh crap, I have to get this signed. So I had a bunch signed that week that I should have signed earlier, but we're good.
Any of them care.
No one cared. I cared more than they did. Like I'd built it up in my mind to be a big deal, but no one cared. All right, what other questions? You have me for 10 more minutes. Well, 5, and then I'll do rep C review. Yes.
What do you like to add? What are your always kind of aging?
The one I watch probably the most is days on market. And then when I am looking at comps in general, I'll look at what concessions look like. And if concessions are on top of list price or if concessions are not, or if they're below. And that's more like when I'm comping houses, I'll look at that. So then it keeps in mind what the market will bear. Yeah, those are probably the two I look at the most because days on market tells you a lot on what you can offer and then concessions if the market's doing it. And then a lot of concessions also just talking to other agents about what they're getting. Like there was one point that we were getting 10 grand and then it went down to 5 grand in like a day, where like everyone was getting 10 and all of a sudden it was 5 for like a month, and then it went right back up to 10. And it was like this weird bubble, and interest rates had dropped. Interest rates are the other one. I watch weekly what are happening with interest rates. And I just have a lender who sends them to me, and the lender is not the cheapest. So I like his rates because they're more holistic, because some lenders will give you the billboard rate, which is like, if your credit's perfect, if you have the best down payment, everything. And if you quote those rates to your clients, they're not going to actually be able to afford it. So his rates are nice because I think he naturally builds in a buffer of like, you don't have the best credit or your debt to income's tricky. Yes.
Right now, so you're saying it kind of varies based on the market.
So right now I'm seeing 9,000-ish, and not on top of list price, but I expect that to change coming into the spring market. So if the house is listed for 500, it's selling for 500 plus 9,000 in concessions, not selling for 509 plus 9,000. And because the list price to sales price shows you the difference. Or you can go look at percentage. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way to find it.
Lender says closing costs are gonna be 11,000 this loan. Would you put 11,000 or would you still put 9,000?
It depends on the house. Because my goal is to get the offer accepted as quickly as possible, because the more counters we have, the more other buyers can come see it. So if the closing costs are 11, but I know the market's bearing 9, then I'd probably do 9, get it accepted, versus ask for 11, get a counter, have someone else come and write the offer and lose the house for my client. But if I'm the only one competing for the offer, then yeah, I'll ask for more. And a lot of that's based off the agent. Like when you call the listing agent and ask them questions, they'll give you way too much information. Some, not all, some will tell you nothing, but some will be like, oh yeah, we got an offer for this. So if you offer above that, that'll be great. Like, great, I was gonna offer you list, but now I'll offer you 20 grand less, sure. So just listening to what they say. What else? Okay, I'll do Rep C review. So if you don't want to hear about the real estate purchase contract, you can leave, or if you want to ask questions later.
Thanks, Becca.
Thank you, guys.